Big news. I have some important news for you.
Interesting news.
It's Blake and Aaron's Spilling the Tea with Sandy.
Cayman's top news headlines of the day from CMR.
Good morning, Sandy.
Good morning, Blake. Good morning, Aaron.
Good morning, Sandy.
What do you got
How
for
are
us
you?
on Monday?
Well, happy Monday. Trust everybody had a fabulous weekend.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So first of all, a bit of police news. There were shots fired in Eastern Avenue on Friday morning. So the police are investigating this report of what they say is some sort of a firearm incident that happened shortly after 4:30 a.m. on Friday, September the 2nd. So they responded to a report of shots fired at an address near the intersection of Godfrey Nixon Way.
Oh,
so
geez.
right by us.
Yeah, not far. So they attended the location and recovered a component of a firearm, which was taken to be forensically processed and analyzed.
So a shell?
They didn't say. I don't think it's a shell. I think it's probably some other part of the actual gun itself. So yes, the matter is under investigation, and as usual, if you have anything that can assist the police in their ongoing investigation, step forward and do so.
That's scary.
Yeah. So the Financial Crime Unit is also investigating reports of persons attempting to unlawfully obtain funds by authorizing fraudulent transactions via email. So they have informed the public that this is being done by impersonating or gaining access to an email account of a person with the authority to approve such transactions. Sounds a little scary. So, they then send emails to a financial institution or business that appears authentic, requesting that funds be transferred. And so people need to be on the lookout for this.
All right.
Okay.
They're suggesting that you have a sort of a dual system set up. Two-factor authentication is what we call it in the IT world, where you verify your transactions either by telephone or in person or some other means other than email if there's any doubt about the validity of the transaction. So I guess banking institutions and people who work in banks need to be on the lookout for that recent fraud as well. Okay. Public Health has announced that the recent outbreak of COVID-19 cases in Cayman Brac is not alarming. So far, as of Friday, they had 67 cases that they were reporting on the BRAC, and they said, do not worry. 37 cases reported within the first 2 days of the week, 23 the following 2 days, and then 37. They said 37 of them is most likely linked to the restart of school activities. So remember now that kids are no longer wearing masks, they're probably not social distancing and doing all the good stuff that kept COVID away. So,
they weren't doing that anyway. It's like, if they're touching their mask and then doing everything,
licking each other,
it's not.
The walls.
It is what it is. I mean, we did a test on my oldest this morning because he has had a lingering cough, and so it's like, let's just make sure, and it was negative. So,
well, what can you do? They said that this is expected. And they will continue to monitor the outbreak there in Cayman Brac. And, you must follow the protocols. So if you test positive and if you have symptoms, you should be getting tested. Stay home, do the right thing. Don't continue to walk around exposing people. If you have any sort of a respiratory infection, keep your distance. So, yeah. In other Brac news, we wish to extend our condolences to the family of Miss Vera Rankin. She is the oldest resident in Cayman Brac at 102 years old.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I know. She passed away last Monday, and she lived in the Kirkernel Community Home Center for the past 7 years and was hospitalized last month after becoming ill. So she was said to be a very well-known and respected woman who lived through many of the catastrophes that affected the Brac. And she was known as
in the world. Yeah,
she was
102.
Born in 1920.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, seriously.
Yeah.
Amazing.
I mean, she the sinking of the Titanic was fresh. Still news headline when she was born.
Yeah.
For her, I want to live.
That's a long time.
That long. Good,
I know.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, she saw. Just imagine all the technology.
Oh yeah, right.
That is
so
her lifetime. Amazing.
Yeah. So she's got 13. She's got 4 children left, 13 grandchildren, 26 great grandchildren, and 2 great great grandchildren.
Wow.
Yeah, along with nieces and nephews. So condolences to her entire family. Truly amazing.
Yeah.
Wow. So yeah, it's a long time. So
we can only hope for that, all of us.
Exactly.
Yes, and a little bit of international news. Liz Truss, I believe is how she pronounces her last name, will be UK's next prime minister. So she's going to follow the controversial Boris Johnson after he resigned amid all the controversy a few months ago, after she has won the Conservative Party's leadership contest on Monday. So she'll formally take over the country's leadership on September the 6th. So good luck to her. That's tomorrow.
Okay.
All right. I think we said Truss, but
I don't
is it
Truss? Is it Truss?
We're not.
It's TRUSS. So
Yes. Are we pronouncing that Truss?
We could say we could be saying it wwrong.
We could all be saying.
I mean, they are British, so I feel like it might be with an extra little twist. Truce.
Yeah.
Truce could be.
It's true, Sterling. It's true, Sterling.
Okay, so we're all bad at it.
Who knows? I don't know. Trust. We'll go with the good old American version.
Yeah.
All right. We'll catch Sandy right now on Bobo 89.1 FM, and we'll see you tomorrow for the Tuesday headlines here on Kiss.
Fantabulous. You guys have a good day.
You too. All
right, folks. We're going to be coming up here shortly, so just stay tuned.
Sorrel, ginger, beaver grass, or English. Get it ready. Your morning tea just got hotter.
Ooh, honey child.
On the cold, hard truth. Bobo 89.1 and Cayman's #1 talk show are bringing you morning talk like no one else. Monday Rewind, Impact Wednesdays, Caribbean Connections, and much more. Don't miss a beat with what's happening in the local community. Just keep sipping your tea.
What a mess.
Here's your host, live and direct from the Cayman Islands, Sandy Hill.
Good morning, Cayman. Rise and shine. Andale, arriba. Time to get up. It is Monday morning. Happy Monday to all of you. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. You make this, gosh, that frog keeps coming back in my throat. You guys make this the best morning talk show in all of the Cayman Islands. And quite frankly, I have no one to thank for that but you. That's right. You right there, sitting in your car right now, listening to Bobo 89.1 FM. Yes, you right there in your car, looking at the window, daydreaming a little bit about life without traffic. Imagine, oh, I see I need to fix something with the camera this morning. Look at this. I restarted the camera last night because Okay, good morning, folks. I think we're back in. I hope we're live. And yeah, I think we're okay. What a mess that was. So bizarre. All I can tell you is we had in the IT world what's called the blue screen of death, which is something you never want to see. I was trying to turn the camera on, and all of a sudden, I just saw the blue screen come up and went bloop. And that was the end of that. The computer restarted itself. What a hot mess. All right, caller, give me 1 second. I'm going to get you in line. So good morning to everyone. As I was saying, I'm hoping that you guys had a fabulous weekend. Caller, you are live on air. How are you? Uh-oh. Looks like they couldn't hold on. Let me call them back. Poor things. They were like, I'm running out of credit. All right, I'm going to answer the phone, Sandy. My apologies. A little bit of a tech situation there. These things happen. Trust me. It is what it is. Happy Monday, everybody. But I think we're back live. Morning, caller. Everybody can hear me? We're good? Hi, caller. Hello? Are you there? Okay. Maybe they didn't mean to call. I'm not so sure. Right. So that was a little bit different this morning, but it happens. Technology being what it is, good folks. Sometimes things go blip. Thankfully, it all came back rather quickly, which is what we want. All right. So good morning to Miss Vernita. We've got Miss Vernita in the house. Marshall is here joining us. We have Alice, Olivia, Miss Iva is here saying happy Monday. Stephen joining us from the UK. So everybody says it's all fixed and they can hear me loud and clear. Thank you for the confirmation. Want to make sure that the radio link is good. Nobody ever wants to see that blue screen in the IT world, but thankfully this computer is pretty fast and it went bloop, 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 bloop. Restarted fairly quickly. All right. So happy Monday. Today is Monday Rewind, which is where we kind of review everything that happened over the weekend, talk about, how the weekend was for you and how it was for people, generally speaking, in the Cayman Islands. I'm feeling a little bit warm today. Let me just check my air conditioner. Ugh, probably needs servicing soon, honey chill. Yes, there goes that CUC bill. Every time you turn it down a degree, am I the only person who has a bit of apprehension about the CUC bill? I'm like, oh, hurry up and turn off the AC. Oh my gosh. Charm is joining us from the UK this morning. It looks like she's taking a bit of a holiday. Good morning to Emma. Wee Wee has got it locked. Miss Ethel is also here. Good morning to Calvin. Aw, thank you so much, Calvin. We've got Tracy from New Zealand. Scott has got it locked. Luis, ¿cómo estás? Everton is here. He said, yeah, he was wondering what was going on just now. What can I tell you? We got to love computers because they make our lives go clickety click. But sometimes we're reminded that the computers are kind of in charge, I feel like, yeah, because they allow us to do the things that we do. But the second they don't work, oh boy, we're in a bit of trouble. Morning, Carmelie. Marshall says happy Labor Day in the US. Oh, yes, happy Labor Day. They get a little bit of a holiday over there. That's nice. Miss Brenda has got it locked. Aliano is here saying good morning. And of course, Leslie is here. So let's rewind it a little bit. Where's your Monday Rewind?
Time for Monday Rewind. The Cold Hard Truth's Monday Rewind show recaps the weekend's news and events so you don't miss a beat.
Don't miss out.
All the weekend's source, news, gossip, and well, it wouldn't be a weekend recap show without traffic accidents too. Cayman Marl Road is Cayman's #1 news source and has the island's hottest morning talk show.
It's the hottest.
Make sure you don't miss a beat with Monday Rewind.
Rewind.
Tune in every Monday from 7:30 a.m. on both YouTube and Facebook.
Thank you so much. Somebody said you're in 104.1. Not that I'm aware of. I think I'm supposed to be just in Bobo, but hey, if the folks over at 104 want to tune in as well, why not? Let's take over all of the DMS stations. I'm sure Don Seymour is saying, no. We can't have that craziness this morning. Good morning to everyone. And thank you once again for all tuning in this morning. Good morning to Ms. Beulah. So first of all, for us to really do Monday Rewind correctly, I must acknowledge and thank all of you who reached out to me over the weekend. From Friday straight up until even this morning, I was still getting messages about Friday's show. It was, people have described it as a moment of truth for sure. Raw, honest. I've just gotten some amazing feedback and comments. And I tell you what, I really appreciate your comments. Someone said to me just yesterday, said, thanks for being so vulnerable. Awesome show. I caught bits and pieces of it. And I would imagine your show sparked a few family conversations, and we'll watch the whole show later on. And then they went on to say your vulnerability and willingness to have tough and difficult discussions certainly has inspired many to do the same. And I really do hope that that is the case, because I always say this, and I'm willing to admit to imperfections inside and out. And, I think there's a degree of honesty that obviously comes with that. We have to admit our flaws. And for all of the things that we may have accomplished in life, our history, individual history, collective history, everything leaves a bit of an imprint in your life's journey. And a lot of it will be up to you, how you take that imprint and how you then add that to your life's canvas. And so sometimes we engage in really, destructive and negative behavior, and that's how we exhibit it. Other times we are able to pull ourselves out of the situation, and it takes a degree of consciousness and conscious living and thinking, like really thinking about your decisions in life. And so it was no surprise that over the weekend, when I saw Miss Cayman finally do her interview with this Spanish guy from Telemundo. He's in Miami. Sorry, I had to know his name. It kind of struck me as being interesting, some of the things that she said. So she did an hour-long interview with this guy. And of course, he had to ask her about the incident. And so I've taken a snippet out of her interview that I want you guys to listen to. And then I want us to discuss it. And one of the reasons that I suppose my expectations are so incredibly high of this young lady is because I really think that she has the potential, right? She has the potential to do all of the things that she's saying, to be impactful, to be a role model. She's a decent looking young lady. She speaks extremely well. And she knows the emotional game. Like, she knows how to say the right thing in the moment. And I think that has a lot of people fooled. But when you've had the opportunity of having lived a little bit longer than she has, you know what I'm saying? Twice as long as her, and you understand emotional and psychological trauma, both from your own personal experiences, and you've actually, had some academic learning in the field. I see the facade. I really, really see the facade. And it's unfortunate because the potential is without a doubt there. But listen to the interview. I only took a few minutes of it, and then we shall dissect it and have a moment to talk about it.
Bit of a representative of every single country. But I was a little bit scared or afraid about this interview and Miss Russia interview for the reason that I already told you. We planned to do this interview like 3 weeks ago or something.
3 weeks ago, yeah.
And when I announced that interview, I got a lot of messages from people in your country telling me a couple of things that you know what I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. And it was very, very hard to read it. And I said, listen, I don't want to, the people were very unhappy with your election. I know that it could happen in every single country, but the things that sent me about you were kind of serious. You were involved in a situation very controversial.
Yes.
And I didn't feel like to ask you things like that. And immediately you text me back and you asked me to change the interview. I feel relieved a little bit, but at the same time, I wanted to let you know that even I don't know the situation, and it is a situation involved with the police and public order and things like that. Everyone have an opportunity in life to change with the mistakes. Yeah. I am looking at you as a very smart person. I'm looking at you a very calm and peaceful person. But I can imagine that situation, being true or not, changed a little bit about your life. And now I think you are prepared to talk about. If you're not, you're free to don't say anything. But I want to let you know that as I text you before, I'm here. I'm here because.
Oh, you were so kind. I was like, okay, good, because I really was so excited to talk to you. So when all of that stuff started happening, I was just like, I didn't want our live to be tainted by it, and I didn't want it to be awkward between us, because I don't do well with awkward situations. But I still can't talk about it in detail. I'm actually doing a video, like a small autobiography video. So that's going to be coming in the next months, maybe 2 months or so. And it explains in detail, whoa boy, in detail.
All right, folks. So just give me 1 second. I'm getting just a few messages here that you guys are not able to hear me on radio, which is a bit bizarre. Nothing has changed. So let me just make a few adjustments on this end to see if we can figure out why you're not able to hear that clip on radio. So give me 1 quick second. I'm just going to go through and check everything. So that's all good. It's a bit bizarre, but hold on. Hold on. Let's check all of our settings and make sure we've got audio. That one is good and that one's good. Okay. I don't see any logical explanation. So let me just reach out to Chuck. As to why people can't hear me. Because I don't see. So you guys can hear me, but you're not hearing the interview. Okay. So everything on this end actually looks really good. So let me just we're gonna just have him double check. Okay. Yep. I mean, should be good. So I'm just waiting on a little response from Chuck. Can't hear the interview in the radio. All right. Let me see what's going on. All right. All right. Let me see if I can get a hold of Chuck and see what's going on. So we're listening to an interview here by Tiffany. So Sky says, I can hear both. And Daisy says, I can hear you. So are you guys hearing me on radio, to be clear? Because I want to make sure that it's the radio feed that people can hear me on. So I'm not sure why some people are saying they can hear me. Sky says she can hear both. So if you can hear me in radio, can you just confirm for me? Because if you can't, then Jennifer says I can hear loud and clear. Just to confirm, Jennifer, that's on radio, yes? Because if some people can hear me and some people can't, that's definitely not something on my end. And Catherine says that she's hearing it clearly as well. Someone says radio, yes, interview, no. So yeah, it's the interview to be very, very clear, that I want you guys to be able to hear. All right, let me try it again. Like I said, I haven't really changed any setting because it should all be good. So I'm going to just hit the play button and tell me if you can hear this interview.
Or afraid about this interview and Miss Russia interview for the reason that I already told you. We planned to do this interview like 3 weeks ago or something.
3 weeks ago, yeah.
And when I announced that interview, I got a lot of messages from people in your country telling me a couple of things.
Okay, this is a bit bizarre where you guys can't hear me. Let me try one. I'm going to change one other slight setting. And then you can tell me if you can hear me. So here we go again. If you can't hear the interview, that's on your side. Okay, so let me try one more thing.
You know what I'm talking about. And it was very, very hard to read it. And I said, listen, I don't want to, the people were very unhappy with your election. I know that it could happen in every single country, but the things that sent me about you were kind of serious. You were involved in a situation very controversial.
Yes.
And I didn't feel like to ask you things like that. And immediately you text me back and you asked me to change the interview. I feel relieved a little bit, but at the same time, I wanted to let you know that even that I don't know the situation, and it is a situation involved with the police and public order and things like that. Everyone had an opportunity in life to change with the mistakes. Yeah. I'm looking at you as a very smart person. I'm looking at you a very calm and peaceful person. But I can imagine that situation, being true or not, changed a little bit about your life. And now I think you are prepared to talk about. If you're not, you're free to don't say anything. But I want to let you know that as I text you before, I'm here. I'm here because
you were so kind. I was like, okay, good, because I really was so excited to talk to you. So when all of that stuff started happening, I was just like, I didn't want our live to be tainted by it, and I didn't want it to be awkward between us because I don't do well with awkward situations. But I still can't talk about it in detail. I'm actually doing a video, like a small autobiography video. So that's going to be coming in the next month, maybe 2 months or so. And it explains in detail, whoa boy, in detail, about my life from birth to present. So keep an eye out for that. Shameless plug. But I can say that, one, we all know not to always believe the media. 2, I think the version I've shown people, the people who know me and are still in my corner, know me. They know Tiffany. They know the girl behind the screen. They've hung out with her. They see her eat so much chocolate. They don't know where it goes. They know that version of me. And they know that I'm not someone who is out there to hurt people.
And how could you use that unfortunate situation with your former boyfriend that obviously brought you to that situation that you are fighting every day to be a happy person? How do you think it helped girls that are looking at you as a role model? Because there is a lot of things that media says. Part of them, it can be true. Part of them can be don't true. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, you are Miss Cayman Island. Yeah. And there is a role model for many girls that could be you in a good way or a bad way. They can say, okay, if she had that kind of fight with her ex-boyfriend, I can do it and it's all right. Yeah. If she hit somebody, I can do it. It is all right. But at the end of the day, I'm looking at you, a sweet, smart, and kind person. So it doesn't, even that everybody had that difficult time, that you get it out of your own body. But how can you help the young girls that look at you as a role model when they read or they see things like that about you?
Well, in the video that we're hoping to film and put out there, I'll talk about, like I said, the struggles I've had in life, and my entrance into the dating world, into the world of boys, was not as beautiful as many other people. I'll put it that way. I don't know who's watching in the video that we're doing. It will be disclaimer, please be 16 or older or have parents. So I won't say too much, but the relationship I had with men started with my dad not being around. So I didn't really know how to interact with men. And then I was in a house of all women. So even as platonic, I didn't understand what a male-female relationship was supposed to look like.
How is the support that you're receiving, you're getting from your organization? Because at the beginning, I got scared when you text me that you couldn't do the interview. I thought maybe they're gonna be dethroned, but it was a risk in your brain? All right.
No, so everything's good. We were shopping yesterday for outfits, and they actually, since we've been on this live, I see the support group, they're messaging, you look so pretty, we love your lipstick. And so, but they're behind me, and I'm thankful to them, because I would not be able to use my voice the way I want to if it weren't for them. Because if they found that this situation was not worthy of them to be supportive of, then I wouldn't be able to share my message. I wouldn't be able to have this platform. And so I'm ever grateful to them. I can't repay them. I don't have a crown to give them back. I can order one, but I love them so much, and they've been a big support to me. And yeah.
All right, folks, a couple observations that I'd like to make. And again, this is a snippet of an hour-long interview that Tiffany did over the weekend with this radio personality from Telemundo. My apologies for not remembering his name. I don't really, as you guys know, follow. His name is Luis Alfonso Borrego. I don't really follow, the pageant world as much as I guess some other people do. So he goes around and interviews all of the different pageant queens that have won at least Miss Universe. I don't know if he follows Miss World or any other pageant competition. But it's so interesting that he first starts out talking about his concerns. He had two countries. Listen to how crazy this is. He has two countries that he was concerned about. The Cayman and Russia. Did anybody else pick up on that moment when he said that? Because to me, I thought to myself, we're in the same boat as Russia, who has just unprovokingly, if that's a word, attacked a sovereign nation. They've attacked Ukraine, because that's pretty big on the ring of controversial countries, right? And I'm sure, Miss Russia is getting a lot of sort of kickback from that whole situation. Little Cayman, with a population of less than 70,000 people or thereabouts, is being compared with Russia in terms of being as controversial in his mind. And he was a little bit scared to interview Miss Cayman. Wow. That says volumes. And I really hope that the committee is paying attention, because they have pretty much demonstrated that they don't intend to do anything about this. So those of us who had any expectations of them can just forget it, because they have made it patently clear. And I'm going to come back in a minute to why I say that is the case. She goes on to talk about how she's gone through this transformation of growth and maturity, and this version of herself looks very good with a crown. So you guys got to go watch the full interview, because there's a lot to unpack in the things that she says. She said, had she won the first time, she admits that she wouldn't have been a good queen. But this version of myself looks very good in a crown. And I had to think about this because there are different times that she almost, and he picks up on it a little bit, where it's almost like a split personality sort of a situation. Like she splits herself up and compartmentalizes herself. Remember when she was talking about, certain people know her as eating chocolate and loving chocolate, never putting any weight. And those people know that version of her. Tiffany, I always say that we are 360 individuals. And as you guys can see from even the show that we had on Friday, we are very, very complex people, right? There's only one version of us, but within that one version of us, there's different angles because we are 360. So there's not different versions of you. You're supposed to be a whole person. If you've got different versions of you, some in the clinical world might say that that's some sort of compartmentalization or split personality that's happening. I might want to talk to a professional about why you see yourself in that way. So there isn't the, oh, I'm perfect, I'm going to put on the crown, Miss Universe version of me. Today you're going to get the nice version of me. When you upset me because I've got daddy issues, then you're going to get the I'm going to kick your behind version of me. It's very, very interesting, her choice of words and how she sees herself and how she describes herself. Very, very articulate young lady, without a doubt. But it's still interesting to pick apart exactly what she says. No surprise, daddy issues. Wow. We talked about it already in this program. I said already, the reason why Tiffany has a problem with rejection is obviously because despite her dad, Noel Chisholm, or whatever his name is, Noel Conley, my apologies, getting on this program and talking about how proud he is of her and all this kind of stuff, you're probably, remember when I said you're probably the reason why Tiffany is the way that she is? Well, in this interview, she says, I didn't have a father in my life. Do we not understand how that hardship of feeling abandoned by a parent can have long-lasting repercussions? She just said it to us. I didn't have a father in my life. As a result of that, I don't know how to relate to men. Now, let's take it a little bit further, because in her truth and in telling her story, and again, I reflect on what I had to say, some of the things that I said on Friday, and it's not about trying to hurt anybody else, but it's about understanding all of the different intricate things that have an impact in who we become and who we are, even now as you stand supposedly in your truth. Now, Tiffany's daddy issues, we can blame on daddy and her mother. You're probably sitting here going, well, Sandy, why are you going to go there? Well, I'm going to go there because, again, when I have elders and even my own family saying to me, oh, she comes from such a good family. They're good people and they're a good family. Yeah, that's fine in the Cayman context, but you know that y'all be lying about what your definition of good is. Because how can you be coming from a good family when your mother has 4 children for this man? Okay, this seems to be common knowledge. I'm not telling y'all something that you should know. 2 of the children were pre his wife, and 2 of the children after his wife. So the man goes out there, marries somebody else. This is the story that's on the street. Ends up marrying someone else, having a relationship with them. I'm assuming children with them. And you continue to have a relationship with this man. And not only continue to have a relationship with him, despite the fact that he's now a married man, but you continue to have children with this man. And you have all girl children, and you don't think your girl children are going to be impacted by seeing this chaotic relationship? Parents, we need to take responsibility for the foolishness that we are constantly exposing our children to. That, by no definition, is coming from a good family. So I take insult to all the good families that do exist out there, and I'm not claiming mine is one by any stretch of the imagination. I take insult to when people say, oh, she comes from a good family. No, she doesn't. If that is what happened, she comes from a dysfunctional, batshit crazy, chaotic environment. And it's no wonder she has daddy issues and more. Now, why her daddy issues translate into assaulting people physically is a very different situation. She has said that she is the victim of all the abuses available. emotional abuse, psychological abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse. She said that in her interview. So as someone who has been allegedly a victim of all of that physical abuse, and I don't know who was physically abusing her and all this sort of thing, it does strike me as quite interesting that the way in which she exhibits her, chronic daddy issues and the inability to take rejection. And, she talked about how she sees men and how she loves and all this sort of stuff. I do find it really, really interesting that she turns to violence. I mean, it speaks of something else that is amiss in the whole situation. Now, let's think about this component for a minute. The interviewer said at one point that, this situation with a former boyfriend. So he talks about it in the singular sense. And this, again, is problematic because despite what she wants to say about, oh, you can't believe everything you hear in the media, to me, that was like a Trump moment. When I heard her say that, I saw the little orange man's face right there. Like, oh, God, this is so Trump-esque. You can't believe what the media says until it's something that I want to be heard. And then it's like, oh, yeah, the media is fantastic, right? She said, you can't believe everything you read in the media. And he's referring to a singular event. Oh, that boyfriend. This isn't one boyfriend. This is multiple situations of not just attacking a boyfriend and family members and breaking into houses and, holding people at bay, holding the police at bay. This is assaulting your mother. This is assaulting your sister. This is assaulting the police, and to water it down to, oh, it's only the one boyfriend that has upset you and that this has not been a lifetime of chronic issues in her entire adulthood really, again, speaks to how contrived and dishonest this entire interview and this entire situation is, including the holder of the crown. That's why I can't have any respect for her. I can have respect for Tiffany admitting that she's got mental health issues. Now she's going to turn this into a whole documentary, and the committee is going to be applauding her in the back. I'm sure this was their brilliant idea to somehow, let's share your story so others can learn from it. You don't share your story in a contrived way. You share your story from an honest and genuine place, right? This isn't about doing this documentary in 2 months, right around the same time she's supposed to be focusing on the trial, by the way, and focusing on getting ready for, supposedly Miss Universe International. So the timing of her wanting to push this video through is beyond ironic to me. Mm-hmm. The other takeaway from this is that, he himself, by that last interview when he was saying, you're supposed to be a role model, but maybe these young people are looking at you going, oh, well, she can do all these bad things and still be crowned Miss Cayman. So, I can do those things too. Of course, that's a legitimate concern. And I'm sure that there are people out there. There are holders of the crown who have reached out to us and who have said, in fact, not holders of the crown, but participants in the pageant who have reached out and who have said, Miss Sandy, here she is again. As a matter of fact, one sent me, let me see if I can pull this up, her being praised last night. I don't know if she was doing a photo shoot or what this was from, but someone sent us this picture of one of the committee members, again, praising her on their Instagram page, their Instagram stories. And it's like, for this person who is who participated in the pageant to reach out to us and to share these sentiments, I'm going to share this picture here with you guys in a second, again, demonstrates that Tiffany is not really fooling even her other pageant sisters. None of them were fooled by this theatrical thing that has occurred. Here it is. This is what they sent me yesterday. They said, MCIU, Miss Cayman Islands Universe, member proud and about. Well, would you look at that? A committee member proud and posting a photo shoot with his winner. Once again, no shame. Clearly, they aren't planning on doing anything about her title, even though she was dishonest from the beginning. What a damn shame. No backbone they have. Real bunch of cowards our island has as committee members. All Kenneth, that's a real joker. Another one with no backbone and all mouth. Yes, I'm going to fully and wholeheartedly agree with this sentiment that this young lady who again participated in the pageant has sent through, because it's the truth. They intend to do nothing about this. So any of you who thought that they were going to do anything about it, if you listen to what Tiffany said, because the man asked the question, Oh, so there was no real concern of you ever losing your crown? And what did she say? She said, nope, we're all good. They're texting me right now. They're all supportive, blah, blah, blah. Remember a couple of weeks ago, they claimed that they were undertaking an investigation into what happened? That's a bunch of BS. There's no investigation. They went on vacation. The committee chairman, Derry Dakers, went on vacation to Canada with her kids. I bet you every dollar I have in the bank, which isn't very much, that she's not even gone to court and requested the court file so that she could read what the independent police said. Forget what the media has said. You, just like I did, have the ability to go to court and request the court file, request the statements. Tiffany, as a defendant in this case, her and her attorney would have been given the prosecution's file a long time ago. Have you bothered to say to Tiffany, let us see the prosecution's case against you? No, you haven't. You're not carrying out no investigation, Derry. Y'all disgust me at a totally new level. That is what an independent person would do. She's talking about you can't believe the media. You don't have to believe the media. As the committee, you can request her criminal file and you can see all the witness statements for yourself. You can read her interviews. They would have given her the interviews recorded on CD, and you could see what she had to say, because guess what? According to the court file I read, Tiffany admitted to a lot of what she did. Okay, yeah, I punched him. Oh, I don't remember breaking his glasses because she was in such a blinded rage. Maybe she doesn't remember that part. When it comes to assaulting the police, no comment. She wouldn't admit or deny that one. No comment. Okay. So you punch a police officer twice, but no comment. It's the lack of honesty that gets me. I cannot, give her any real credit when she's not being honest and genuine. And the committee obviously intends to do nothing about it. As that person said, no backbone. And she has admitted there was never any real concern about her losing her crown. She has their full support for this version of her. The interviewer juxtaposes the two persons. He's like, on the one hand, you're beautiful, you're articulate, and then there's this other side, this Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. The other thing that she says in the interview, there's two more things that I thought were very, very interesting. She said that this is going to be resolved in 2 weeks. Can somebody help me out here and explain how this is going to be resolved in 2 weeks? Because the trial date, I believe, is October the 17th, if I'm not mistaken. And then you have the trial date. This is a summary court matter. So how this works is she may not have the trial in a complete day, depending on how many witnesses are called by the prosecution, right? I'm assuming she may take the witness in the stand in her own defense. I don't know. She doesn't have to. So the prosecution at least has, I would say, probably anywhere from 3 to 4 witnesses that they're going to be calling. So with summary court, they have what they call part heard. So not every case is heard at a singular hearing. So it can be part heard, and then they'll put it off for another month, and then you hear the next part, and then the judge has to take time to decide on the verdict, because this would be judge alone in summary court. And then they decide on a verdict. And then they're going to request victim impact statements. They might get an SAR from her, where she can talk about all her traumatic things that have happened in her lifetime. They've given her 2 chances already, recording nothing in her record twice. We'll see what the court does for the third go round. And then, that's like months down the line. That could very well and quite easily go into early next year, without a doubt. But she said it's going to be resolved in 2 weeks. So I don't know what Tiffany knows that the rest of us are clueless about when it comes to the judiciary. But she said it's going to be resolved in 2 weeks. I'm looking forward to 2 weeks to see what kind of resolution came about. The other thing of note is she says at some point during the interview, and again, I haven't played the whole thing because I don't have an hour of my time here on the show, but she talks about the fact that for the past 2 years, she has been working on herself and has been loving herself. Again, another bold-faced lie. This didn't happen 2 years ago. So that was another incident. That was another boyfriend. This just happened in November. We're talking about 10, 11 months ago. And she said in her interview on Star 92.7 that 2 weeks after the incident, 2 weeks after she beat up 2 people, damaged 3 vehicles, and assaulted the police, right? So that's 3 people who were assaulted. She decided to run for this pageant again. I do not comprehend and I do not understand how it is possible that she could do that as someone who's claiming that she's been working on herself for all of 2 years and that she's been in a relationship with herself for 2 years. Well, that does not make any sense. That can't be what the reality is. And so once again, we have a situation where Tiffany is able to, lie to people quite blatantly and make up her own version of reality that just isn't accurate at all. So Leslie, let's read some of your comments. Leslie says she's going to do a short autobiography, so she can't talk about it right now. and I'm glad that she said shameless plug, because that's exactly what that is. I don't know. Thank God not that many people actually watch her interview with this guy. When I checked it last, it had less than 800 views, because this should be a national embarrassment for us, but we have no shame. Miss China was dethroned. You guys might have seen this last week. Miss China was dethroned for lying about the educational degrees that she has. Imagine what they would do if Tiffany was in China. They'd probably have her in jail. They dethrone people for lying. This young lady has lied, assaulted people, continues to lie with a crown in her head. It just goes on and on and on and on, and nothing's done about it. So Anthony says, so is the indication that charges in court are on the same tier as media rumors? Here's the thing. I had a show before, and someone said to me yesterday, who they actually turned down the opportunity to be a judge because they didn't want any part of this hot mess. And they said, Sandy, the judges would have known if they pay half attention to what happens in this community, because you covered this before the pageant. And to imagine that they still allowed her to win is really quite shocking and despicable. Now, Anthony, to your point, right? Before I received the document saying, oh, she's in court. And to be honest, I said this before, I actually thought this was the old 2018, 2019 cases where she was going around beating up guys, right? That's what I thought. So I took, before I would say a single word publicly about the situation, I took the time, requested the court file, waited an entire week for the slowness of the judiciary to get those court files, read it, and then I put out the facts per the court file. So she can throw her little shadiness at media all she wants, honey child. What we have had to say in terms of what has transpired, the reason why I can tell you that she assaulted her mother and she assaulted the sister, and the mother right away upon her arrest was telling the police officer, oh, I think you're handling her too roughly. And the sister then disagreed with the mother and said, no, mommy, Tiffany's wrong. And the police officers who were both kicked in the groin were doing their job, and they did not use any excessive force against her. The reason I know all of those details is because it's in the files. So understand what I'm telling you. I didn't request just the one file. I said, wow, this is her third time at the rodeo? Well, let me see all 3 files. And this gave me a much clearer and complete picture of everything that has transpired. So this narrative that both her and the Miss Cayman Universe Committee has put out there, that we have some kind of axe to grind with Tiffany, somebody that we don't even know, right? Because, media just wants to be mean, is a bunch of cockamamie, to put it quite frankly. It's easy to say, don't trust the media, Trump-esque. That's easy. It's hard for you to truly be honest and talk about what actually happened and what I read in the court file. That's the difference. The media is actually being honest, Tiffany. You, on the other hand, are not. So you can tell this interviewer all you want. Don't trust the media. But what I can tell you is he can trust the court, and he can trust that file that I would be glad for you to share with anybody, since nobody wants to trust the media. Show us your case file. Have you shown it to the committee? Has the committee bothered to request it? No. because they're walking around and with their heads in the cloud or in the sand as usual. So Leslie says, Trump moment, Sandy, you just took me out. Well, it's the truth. KK says he's just as bad as her. He being who? The interviewer? I mean, he's clueless. And, you know, these ladies present a version of themselves that looks very polished and looks good, but it doesn't mean that it's the truth. So Leslie says the media has reported using the actual court charge listing, and there's no excuse for domestic violence. And that's exactly what this is. And again, I make no bones about it, right? If this was a man, if the tables were turned, all of you would be demanding his head on a platter. You'd be chanting and protesting in the streets about gender-based violence, domestic violence, and all sorts of stuff. But because it is a woman, we are happy to give her a pass on 2 separate occasions already, and probably again for the 3rd time, when clearly this woman has an issue with physical violence. It's okay to have daddy issues, girl. A lot of us have it. It's okay to have abandonment issues. It's okay to be young and navigating the dating world and not understanding, you know, how to date. Or when a guy says he doesn't want you anymore, not being able to accept that rejection. We have all been there, Tiffany. That's not really all that unusual. You talk about abuse. There's a lot of us who have been subjected to abuse, all sorts of abuse, and probably far worse than you, because supposedly you come from a good family, you know, in a really perfect world where your family has done right by you. As we can see, that's not really the case, but you know, there are people who would have endured so much more in life than you. And they're not going out there abusing people, especially not physically. So Leslie says this is an explanation, but not an excuse. The support group is a hot mess. And her support group being all the people that are rallying behind her, who are simply not telling her the truth. She says that they filter, listen to how great her support group is. They filter what the media says to her and only tells her the good stuff. Who does that? We live in the real world. Your support group only tells you about the positive message. Girl, you are not living in reality, none at all. You have some sort of disassociation thing going on here. You have disassociated yourself from reality. And if your supposed support group is actually engaging in that and only telling you the good stuff to make you feel good, they themselves are part of the problem. That's why we call them enablers. KK says this is a big joke. Anthony says my stomach is actually sick right now. What a disgusting display that is meant to represent our nation. Dorothy says, but there's victims from her behavior. Yes. None of us wants to talk about the victims. The victims who have said to me, because I went the extra step of, okay, wow, damn, I'm reading this file and this is crazy. I'm telling y'all, when I read it, my jaw was open the entire time. When you read court files, there's certain things you can't do. So you can't photocopy it. You can't take pictures of it. So when you go to court, someone sits there and monitors you reading it. And I was like, oh my God, what? Like the whole time the person was sitting there going, this sounds like an interesting case, because that's how shocked I was at what I was reading. But I took the extra step of reaching out to the latest victims to hear them say, Sandy, this young lady is going to kill someone one day if she is not stopped. And this is a big man in his, I mean, I don't want to age the man, but he's got to be at least in his 40s and 50s. This is the father of the young man. And for him to say that, I know he's not the type of person who would be emotive and who would make that kind of statement lightly. She's going to kill someone one day. These were the scariest 10 minutes of my life. And I was like, what? Yes, that is what was expressed. This is not a victimless crime. This is not just, social media bullying, cyberbullying, whatever. This is physical trauma that people were subjected to, property damage, vehicles destroyed. Who knows if she's even been made to repair those things. Mr. Owen says her support group should have advised her better, shaking my damn head. The support group is part of the problem. Good morning to Perla. Ms. Brenda says, is she saying that the ministry and the Minister of Tourism is supporting her actions? Well, she didn't specify who her support group includes. The question that he asked was in relation to the committee and whether or not there was any real concern about her losing her crown. And she said, no, there wasn't. So those of us who like believe them when they were like, oh yeah, we're going to undertake an investigation into the facts. I knew that was a bunch of baloney. You know, I've been telling y'all that they're not going to do nothing. Nothing's going to happen. They're of the philosophy that just leave it alone and it'll blow over and people forget it by next week. And the next thing will come about and it'll be another 15 minutes of fame for somebody else. Leslie says, Sandy, it's just too much. I was thinking the same thing about who he linked us with, Russia and Cayman in one boat. That says plenty. Dorothy says she should have stepped down and shamed the devil. Well, you know, again, this concept of taking no ownership for your behavior, no accountability, that has to be part of the process of you truly being sorry for your actions. She should have never ran in the first place. 2 weeks after you assault someone in your brain, you think, oh yes, I want to be in the limelight. I want to run for Miss Cayman. That alone speaks volumes in terms of what is happening in this young lady's head. And she needs some serious therapy. And Daddy, Noel Connolly, if you're out there listening, you came on the program before defending your little girl, please reach out to your little girl and go to therapy with her because she said you're the reason why she has issues. And I think you need to take ownership of that. Anthony says, did the committee and ministry endorse and approve the interview? I'm assuming that she couldn't do the interview without the blessings of the committee. We don't know what's going on with the ministry. It's been 2 weeks now that we've been waiting on Minister Bryan to make a statement, and nothing has been forthcoming on that front either. So I, again, would like to say that I would not hold my breath for that to happen. Johan, good morning. He's making a comment in relation to another interesting video that was circulating this weekend. All I can say is crazy knows crazy and mad knows mad. Ms. Brenda says, I'm wondering, strange, none of them were there with her. No, I mean, it's an online interview. I don't know what she'd need them for because she's more competent than some of them in terms of her ability to speak. I can tell you that. You know, she is very poised. It's such an unfortunate situation because she could have been an excellent queen without all of this controversy. It is just unbelievable. Anthony makes the point, Kenneth Bryan and his ministry were supposed to deliver updates 2 weeks ago and last week, but nothing but crickets. Where's my cricket button? Do I have my cricket button here? Yes, I believe I do. Let me find it. There we go. Yep. Leslie says, get help if you know that you lack those skills. Domestic violence is not the answer. Perla is asking me for me to get Kenneth Bryan on the show. He did state that he would update the public after the press briefing. Well, last week when he was on, was it last week or the week before? When he was on talking about the resignation of Jude Scott, we heard that it was coming, and as Caymanians would say, soon come and can't come yet. Johan says, stay off of families. You've gone too far. Nobody's perfect. Not cool. Listen, this is the problem, Johan. She wants to say that she has daddy issues. And there are those of you who are sitting there going, well, what does that mean? He wasn't present in her life. You need to understand why he wasn't present. That's because the man had a wife and children. Now, I don't know before he married that wife and children and was with Tiffany's mom, how present he was then. But according to Tiffany, he just wasn't present. So that's the truth. There's nothing. Why are we hiding the truth? You sound like this sibling of mine who last week on Friday was like, oh, don't bring up her grandparents in this. Why? Have I said something that wasn't true? I spoke nothing but the truth on Friday. And the truth is even your generational truth, the dysfunction within your families is what will set you free. You cannot address these issues and heal yourself if you do not understand where they come from, right? And put it all in context. If you go around pretending like you came from a perfect family when you didn't, that's a problem. If our parents are not capable of taking accountability for their actions, both in the past and present, that continue to create little monsters and to create people who are emotionally dysfunctional, and who will assault people who are in charge of law and order. I'm so shocked that so many of you miss the point. It's not even about, oh, I have daddy issues and therefore I don't know how to relate to men and I'm going to beat up men, right? In a relationship. Remember what I told you guys? The family members of another of her victims stepped forward before and called me and said how they were the ones sitting on the sofa when she came, broke into the man's car, got the machete, went and broke multiple windows to break into their house, held the police hostage for how long, and so on and so forth. And they were like, Sandy, my family member, this young man, this wasn't a one-off situation. He endured multiple instances of domestic violence. And nobody should be surprised by that. A person doesn't just wake up today and go, oh, I'm going to beat up my boyfriend just today. Normally, it is a long history of issues. And I would not be surprised to hear that all of these guys come forward and say, you know, I don't want to seem like, you know, a pansy, but yes, she beat me throughout the relationship. Men are afraid of admitting that they are victims, and they're victims. Another young man came forward. He said to me, you know, Sandy, once I had the occasion to call this young lady about a situation. I'm not going to go into any details because she might go now and harass this person. And he said, you know, I called her. I saw her. She had something up for sale or whatever. And I called her. And she completely went off on me to the point where I was like, oh, my God, let me just hang up the phone. And then a day or two later, she calls back. It is this bipolarism, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde personality. She called back and said, oh, I'm so sorry. I shouldn't have said that to you. I should have cursed you out like that. And this isn't someone who's in a relationship with her. This isn't someone who really knows her. They were just like, okay, never mind. I'm good. And they just tried to ease and back away from the situation. That person called me and said, Sandy, thank you for being a voice on this, because I'm telling you, if she was a man, this wouldn't go so. If she was a man, the response in this community would be completely different, but she gets a pass because she's got a pretty face and she wears a dress. Good morning, caller.
Good morning, Sandy. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Good. Listen, the interviewer is online. Is the person's name Louise something?
Yes.
That person is online trying to get your attention. So perhaps you should try to get their number and do a phone interview with that person.
Online where?
On your show, watching on your show, streaming, Facebook, I think.
Oh, okay. Louise.
Yes, take a look at your Facebook comments.
Louise. Wednesday. Oh, thank you so much. I was way down the comments. Senor Luis Alfonso Borrego.
That's why you have your little.
Wow. Thank you. I did not see you were here. Senor Luis, would you like to come on the program? Yes. I can. Let me get the link. Hold on a second. I can certainly provide the link. Let me put it in the comment section. And he's explaining, you know, kind of what he did in the interview, which is fantastic. Caller, thank you so much. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
All right, beautiful. Jeez, there's so many comments. Sometimes I'm behind. Senor Luis, I'm going to put the link right here. Copy the link address. Come on to the program. Here you go. Join the show. We'd love to hear from you. And he says in his comments that I could focus on the superficial details of her reign, but of course I couldn't pass the legal issues because I know how important that matter is for the Caymans. And she told me her truth. Yes, it's unfortunate that her truth isn't the truth. That's the problem. She didn't tell you it isn't a singular incident. It isn't a singular boyfriend. She's dealing with one incident now, but it is a history of assaulting multiple people And like I said, including police officers. So Luis, wow, we appreciate you coming in. Ms. Brenda says that scenario worked before, so that's why she manipulated it again. It's policy that the Queen is chaperoned at every appearance, especially interviews. I don't know what policy is in place now, but it was it was an online interview. So it doesn't appear that anyone was there but her. I mean, I don't know if they were sitting across the table from her, how exactly that worked. So Miss Leslie says, you are correct. Most of your reporting is not investigative. The issues with the young lady have been glossed over, and it's a very big mess. Are you referring to Luis? I don't know who. Oh, yes. I think she might have been, yes, responding to Luis. He says, I'm the interviewer. Luis, there's the link. Feel free to jump in on the show if you would like. We'd love to have you in the program. You can also call WhatsApp. Don't forget, folks, you can always call the number 345-936-2626. You can also call via the WhatsApp line as well. So, Luis, we appreciate you as an interviewer doing the best that you could with the information that you have. And I certainly don't fault you in any way. I think that you asked some good questions, including the question about, there's no concern for you ever losing your crown, because I thought that was a really important question to ask. And like he said, probably in most other places in the world, she would have lost her crown. So he says that I'm not a judge. I just wanted to know her point of view of the situation. Yeah, it's just unfortunate again that she is superficially, presenting the situation. She said it's going to be resolved in 2 weeks. And again, we don't know what that means because I have no clue. Steven says, talk the truth, Sandy. Ms. Sue says, absolutely yes, at all times in the past, totally. Marshall says, how she comes from a good family when her daddy was with another family and not with her? Just wondering what a good family is. Well, again, this is the fakeness that we exist in within the Cayman Islands. We just can't be truthful. We can't be genuine because we are so concerned about what other people think. We're so concerned about, pretending to be perfect when we are far from it. Perla says, do you trust whatever she says about her islands and about herself? Please investigate and get your questions answered properly. Again, to Luis's point, that's not what he does. He's not an investigative journalist. He's just doing his job, which is interviewing a pageant queen. He knows that these issues were in the community. And at the very minimum, he did ask her about them and she addressed them. And, what else can Luis do? Live says, as a former Mr. Cayman, Mr. Brian, he seems to be clueless on pageant rules. I don't think he knows what to do. I wouldn't be surprised if he is caught like a deer in the headlights and has no idea what to do. And the major problem is the committee themselves. I repeatedly said this, that, something has to be done about the committee because clearly they had no proper vetting process in place prior to this situation coming up. So to allow someone to enter with an active court case is quite crazy. So the other thing, of course, is, she has been dishonest. So while we talk about Miss China World being stripped of her titles for lying about academic qualifications, she didn't assault anyone, she didn't beat up anyone. This young lady hasn't been honest. And she has had multiple opportunities to be honest with the committee. When she entered, she could have been honest that I have this pending case. She was charged in January of this year. She could have told them then when she was charged. She went to court at least once after being charged to receive her documents because that's the process. That's how it works. She didn't tell the committee then. She didn't tell the committee about this until the 11th hour. That's what happened. The last possible minute. And the only reason she told the committee is because other people in the community then started talking about it. And so There you go. It's not that she was willing to be honest with the situation at all. It is very, very sad. Let's read some of your WhatsApp comments. Someone says, okay, someone says, I don't know if the wife can't have children or what, but she doesn't have any. Okay. The sad part is the wife doesn't have any children for him, plus he got at least one other child and some Spanish woman. Well, there you go. Nothing surprises me anymore. So how did you talk? Oh, All right. So Kenneth's true colors coming out. Coward. Ooh, I can't call the minister that next word. No. All of them afraid of her. All committee members, and Kenneth says this other person says, to my knowledge, no. All the kids are for him. No. Again, this is people. Anyway, we have two. Okay. All right. So yes, folks, this is the hot mess. And Ms. Brenda says, show him the court records. Again, Tiffany has a file. She has a physical file that she would have received of all the evidence, all the witness statements, everything that the prosecution has against her. So if anyone has any doubt about the version of what the media is saying, you can feel free to ask her, because she has it, her and her lawyers. Ask her for the file. We have zero invested in trying to make this young lady look any worse than she already does. That's not what we're about here, right? That's not what we do. We don't make up stories. You don't have to believe CMR or not. You don't have to believe the Compass. You don't have to believe CNS. This is a situation that the actual physical records are in her hands. And if you ask her for that, then there you go. Because she actually told the committee, I spoke to committee members, she told them it was self-defense. But again, they're so clueless about the process of court and everything else. They're like, oh, it's self-defense? Okay. Why at that stage, when she was telling them it was self-defense and that this man and her son had her down on the ground holding her and she was only defending herself, because that's the version that she wanted to put out there to the committee before the pageant, why not show them the file then? So they could read the statement from the police about how you assaulted them at the detention center, how you were acting belligerent and crazy in the police car. Time would have passed. There was time for you to calm down. Before they interviewed you, they even called your psychiatrist. Is she okay to interview? Or is she going to beat us up in the interview? And the psychiatrist was like, nope, she's fine. They did a little assessment. Go ahead, interview her. She's good. Why not just put all the information out there if you're trying to be, so in your truth? Cameron says, I'm going to go ahead and cancel my Netflix and Hulu subscription. Nothing can beat CMR and the cold hard truth. Good morning, Cameron. Dean says, I wonder if a contestant should apply next year or similar or other characteristics of current queen. What'll be the outcome? You know what I think should happen? And I want every single potential beauty queen to listen very carefully to me. You guys should boycott the Miss Cayman Universe pageant. Mm-hmm. If you have one kernel of decency about you as a young lady, you should never enter this contest as long as those same committee members remain in place. How about that for you? Boycott next year's contest. Yeah, they're going to have it at the Westin. All of you, Anthony, Dean, Miss Brenda, Miss Sue, Miss Dorothy, every single one of you who see the issues here, how about we all go out next time with our picket signs and protest the next competition? Y'all want to talk about real life activism here? When you've had enough of the foolishness, right? It's not enough that we sit here amongst ourselves and 420 something of you are on the live stream and countless others listen to Bobo 89.1. What we really need to do is get up and do something about it. You can do something about it, potential beauty queens. Go to Miss World. They not got no controversy over there, right? Don't support this pageant. Don't have your good name tarnished by Tiffany and this entire pageant. That's what I would do. I don't care how beautiful you are, and you might want that used car, that used Kia, whatever they're giving away these days. You want that government scholarship. Honey child, you can get a government scholarship just by being smart. Brains, not beauty, will get you plenty places in this world. Yes. Boycott the pageant. Don't participate. Make them have no entries next year where they have to cancel the pageant. I bet you then the friggin' ministry would wake up. I bet you then they'd have something to say. And the rest of us will be out there on the sidewalk hosting our protests. All right, it's a ways off. Another 10 months before the pageant rolls around again. I know short-term memories gonna have y'all worse than the old folks with Alzheimer's, because y'all can't remember nothing after a couple of months. So I will be sitting here, God's willing, in 10 months, reminding you that the pageant is coming up this Saturday. The same committee is in place. We never got that statement from the ministry. The committee never found the truth, right? So let's go out there and protest and do something about it. I'm going to be there at my picket sign. Dorothy says she hasn't apologized to her victims. No, she hasn't apologized to anybody because she sees nothing wrong with what she has done. She's the only victim in this. She's provided all these excuses and explanations for her behavior because she sees herself as the victim. Nobody else has been victimized in this situation but her. The trauma and physical abuse that the other people have gone through doesn't matter. Brenda says, tell Luis it's not a social media, it's a pending criminal case. He needs to know the truth. Well, I don't know. Like I said, Luis did the best that he could. I'm sure of that, but Ms. Sue says the committee needs a good shakeup so this mess doesn't happen in the future. Again, nothing is going to happen with the committee. Mark my word. If they had any scruples at all, they would be all stepping down, but they don't. They're out shopping. What did she say? She went shopping for clothes yesterday. That's where the priorities are. Doing a photo shoot and going shopping for clothes. Moya says she needs to write an autobiography of the court records because her version of truth would fall under fictional. Woo, Moya. Live says, totally agree. Read the boycott. Anthony says, there you go, Seymour. Kaboom! Where's my kaboom button? Ay, ay, ay. I need to get up on my things. Shirley says, now that is the cold, hard truth. Boycott. Miss Leslie says, the crown is tainted. Who's going to want that title after her? New committee, new brand, and higher standards. Yes, honey child. She's going to join in the virtual protest and she's overseas. We're going to do it. Anthony, are you in? He says, worked with recent boycotting too. All right, let's boycott the next Cayman Islands. We're going to do it. I'm not going to forget, and I'm going to remind y'all. And if I'm the only person out there boycotting next year, well, so be it. Richard says we already know the outcome of her pending court case. And that's a sad thing, is this whole situation is actually calling into doubt in everybody's mind whether or not the judiciary can now do the right thing. And that's scary. It's scary to think because she is a public figure that the judiciary could get this wrong. Now, I have, generally speaking, when it comes to judges, I have faith in the judiciary. I do not have faith in jury trials because I've seen them allow child molesters to go. A man molested his own daughter and they allowed that man to walk out of the courthouse, a free man. And he had the audacity to try to talk to me. I said, not today, Bobo. Because I might end up in Tiffany's situation. Not today. Because you are a child molester and I believed your daughter. Right? But the jury let her go because he claims he's trying to save his daughter from becoming a lesbian and they let him walk. That was his defense. Oh, she wants to go hug up on these little girls and she wants to engage in a sleepover. And because he wouldn't allow her to go to a sleepover, she's accusing him of raping her and sexually assaulting her over a year, 6 different times. I'm like, yeah, right. But the jury believed him. So I don't have any faith in jurors per se, because they get it wrong all the time. Sometimes I sit there and I don't know if I heard the same case that they heard. But judges, I'm going to give them a 90% pass. Not all the time, but sometimes they get it right. Live says a committee member is a pervert. Fire them all. Oh, Lord. Good morning to Mr. Dean. Just a suggestion. Maybe you could specify which Dean for people on the radio because there's more than one. All right. So that's Dean Shillette. And yes, we do have Dean Sinclair, who is a lady who is also on the show. But yes, there's more than one Richard that's here every morning as well. Only one Cameron so far. So Cameron said, just add Kung Fu as a category and we'll all get some real entertainment and out the roof ratings. Cameron has a very funny sense of humor. Dean Sinclair, Madam Dean, says, yes, it should not be accepted nor tolerated. It's not an individual or committee thing only. It's the entire island. Well, it does reflect on us. So while she's sitting there talking about we have the most beautiful sunsets and the Cayman people are so kind and generous and whatever, yeah. Oh, this reflects very, very poorly on all of us. Anyway, what more can we say? This is the gift that just keeps on giving, honey child. And every time she opens her mouth, I am just in awe at what comes out and what more is said. There you have it. All right, let's move on. One quick note. On Friday, we posted on social media that the bus drivers had put up a notice to say that they were increasing their fares. Now, by that evening, the actual ministry issued a statement to say, hold on a minute. There will be no increases. We've not authorized any increases. And so, they've gotten this wrong. Now, I, for the world of me, thought this was such a peculiar situation. I'm like, how did this happen? So you drive a public bus, which is governed by the public transport unit, and they're governed by the public transport board. And they may have applied, from what I understand, for an increase, but it wasn't considered yet, and it certainly wasn't approved. How do you jump from that to actually typing up a notice, telling your customers, because I had more than one customer reach out to me, that you have somehow increased your fees? Here's a little notice that they put up. Increase in fees. And I'm not saying that maybe they don't deserve an increase in fees, but you have to go through the correct process. Are we so lawless? They said that they haven't had a fee increase in 20 years. I think that's unreasonable because, should I be quite frank and honest, the fares have certainly gone up. Now, a lot of people have said, listen to me. They are making all kind of money, all $4,000 or $5,000 a month. Do they really need to stick it to the people by increasing their fares? But, the bus business isn't necessarily easy. It's a lot of wear and tear in vehicles, repairs, and of course, gas is only but one consideration. You got to be able to keep these vehicles licensed and operational, and you need your public transport license. You need your vehicular license. You need to make sure the air conditioning is working good. During COVID, they were severely impacted because of all the restrictions that were placed on, separating on buses and mask wearing and all that sort of thing. Ms. Moya, thank you so much for hoping that the victims get justice. We all hope that as well. So Cameron says because they know it's coming, so they just jump the gun. Well, I don't know if they jumped the gun or not, but they took the time to put together this public notice and this flyer that appears to be, it seems rather official when it says public notice, right? And everybody was fooled by the public notice. We all thought, oh my gosh, okay. So I got it on Thursday. And then on Friday, somebody said to me, Miss Sandy, I went to get on the bus this morning and the driver told me that there has been an increase in the fee and I'm going to have to pay this. Someone says, yes, we're more lawless now than ever. Someone says there's no way she'll get a fair trial in this country. Oh, I don't think you have to worry about that. The judges will give her more than a fair opportunity. And the truth of the matter is, you know, she's had more than her fair chances, and I don't really have any sympathy in terms of what the judiciary decides to do in this instance. Someone says maybe the cold hard truth is that the committee doesn't care. Maybe the minister doesn't care. Maybe this is an okay standard and is okay, light for Cayman to be seen in. Maybe we are all that far gone. Well, yeah, I mean, that is that's an unfortunate situation. I don't know. Okay, let me just see here. So I don't know who's sending me something about a booking. I think they're messaging the wrong Sandra on that one. All right, folks. So yeah, so they kind of jumped the gun on this, and you know, it is what it is. The ministry then issued a statement to say, hold on a second. Public Transport Board has not rendered any decision in terms of any fee increases. And so despite the fact that bus drivers have been circulating this piece of paper and telling patrons about the increase, that increase has not been approved. So the Public Transport Board acknowledged that a request has been made to increase the bus fares. However, given the impact that a fare increase could potentially have on the community and the cost of living, the request is being carefully considered and no decision has been made at this time. So if you ride the bus, they have shared with us what the correct fee structure is. And so please visit the website and read that article, because once again, you know, the bus drivers are trying a thing. And you can't do this when you're part of a bus system, folks, that is governed by the public transport unit, the government, the Public Transport Board. You don't get to just make unilateral decisions about increasing your fees. That just isn't how it works. Okay. Yes, I get it. Y'all thinking we all lawless, but we can't be. All right. So Shireen, good morning. Shireen says that this happens all the time in Jamaica. They just start to collect the new fares from the actual date. Miss Morna says Bobo still charges $1 from town to East End. Who's Bobo? Cameron says still not heard nothing further on the Barbados transport link. Well, I mean, I don't think you're going to hear too much at this time. The minister is busy preparing for the upcoming, the upcoming conference, tourism conference is coming up here shortly. Mazine says that Miss Morna, Bobo will never change that price. Bobo's doing it out of the kindness of his heart then. Good morning to CE Bank. So good to see you. Aliana says, so because operation cost increases across the islands, the bus rate goes up. So what about the tourist workers? When is our income increasing? You know, I've said this before, folks, even as it relates to the minimum wage increase, it looks like the review team, I don't know if they've been finalized, but they're working on that being put together. You have to be realistic that any increases, even in the minimum wage, is going to have a knock-on effect and everything else is going to go up. So how much is an increase going to help you? Well, we'll wait and see. But mark my word, the 20% of the population, and I'm not saying this is a fact, I'm just throwing this out there, that is impacted by that minimum wage, the entire 100% of us is going to pay for an increase in the minimum wage. Who do you think they can pass it on to? Come on now. Thankfully, I do not believe that most people are paying at minimum wage. Now, restaurants, that's a whole other situation. But anyway, it is what it is. We will see. The cost of everything in restaurants already sky high, and it's going to go up even more. All right, Ms. Dawn, good morning. Let's now move and talk a little bit about the situation as it relates to concessions. So before we do that, let me see if our news is ready to be downloaded. I believe so. So we'll take a news break. And by the way, speaking of census figures and information, it's really, really important. Number one, for those of you who participated in the census, thank you very much for doing that. Not only is it important that you participated in the census, but it's now important for us to go through the census information and to really ascertain how all the information that they collected impacts our lives. This is a snippet of some of the information from the census. I want you guys to listen to this very carefully. They're sharing this video with us because this is important information. This information impacts policy. It impacts the decisions that the civil service and that the politicians are going to be making on our behalf. In fact, it even impacts the decisions and discussions that we will be making on this program. Yeah.
The population of the Cayman Islands is dynamic, diverse, and growing fast. Since the 2010 census, we have added more than 16,000 residents and almost 7,000 new households to our islands. This means that in Census 2021, around 71,100 persons call the Cayman Islands home. More people than ever live in high-density apartments, which grew by 44%. Home ownership increased by 20%, and 54% of households are renting, with only 9% of households without internet connection at home. We are a diverse community with nationalities from more than 162 countries worldwide. 64% of our residents were born overseas, coming mainly from Jamaica, the Philippines, the United Kingdom, and the United States. 89% of households speak English at home. Of the 11% of persons who speak a language other than English at home, the most common ones are Spanish, Filipino, and Indian languages. With a literacy rate of 98.6%, the Cayman Islands' residents have skills and are resourceful, with 31% holding university degrees and professional designations, and another 22% completed vocational training and associate degrees. The 2021 census results show that job creation in the Cayman Islands is on the rise, increasing by more than 10,200 between 2010 and 2021. There are more than 44,400 active jobs across the Cayman Islands. Nevertheless, our community has some income inequality. The top 20% of households earn more than 45% of total income, while the bottom 20% earn less than 5%. We also have vulnerable communities that need additional support, and over 14% of unemployed citizens receive social welfare assistance. Some people in our community struggle with speaking and hearing, while others have difficulty with everyday tasks. Approximately 139 persons in every 1,000 have a disability. Among our young people, about 5% are not in school or work. More than 33% of households have children, while 1/3 of households are single person living alone. The people of the Cayman Islands are religious, with over 82% of the population affiliated with a religion, and crime is below 2.5% among persons 15 years and older. Find out more about the Cayman Islands Census 2021 report at www.eso.ky.
All right. Someone has made the comment that the Public Transport Board should suspend the license of the person who issued that statement for the increase. I do believe that they should undertake an investigation to see how that came about. And quite frankly, that some action should be taken. Do I think it's going to happen? No. Listen, speaking of public transport, before we take our news break, let me also remind you guys that last week there was a post on social media where someone was in an examination room taking a photo of their results. And this was something that someone had sent to us, and it was shared on our Facebook page. So when you go and take the actual exam, you are not permitted by law to take your phone or any sort of electronic device into the testing room. This is the DVDL test room with you. Well, this person did, and they posted a comment where they said, I don't know how or what should I feel when I sat down and start to answer all of these effing, and they put the question, but I'm so proud that I make this happen. And then they showed the screen of the IDEMIA system. I've never seen this because I've not taken a driver's test in Cayman, like I said last week. Total time taken 22 minutes and 33 seconds. Total time remained 27 minutes and 27 seconds. Average time per question was 33 seconds. And total number of questions was 40. Total number of correct answers to pass 32. And apparently they passed with 32. So they passed with the minimum. This is interesting for a number of different reasons. First of all, it's interesting because if you're not supposed to have a phone, again, talking about lawlessness, if you're not supposed to have a phone in the testing center, how is it that you get to take a photo of your testing screen? I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. And so in order for this person to have taken this photo, obviously they had their camera with them, their phone with them, right? And so there were people who were asking, well, how do you know? And I'm like, well, how else are you going to take a picture like this? How else do you take a screenshot like this? And this is a classic example of when you take a picture of a computer screen, how it shows up with those little lines and stuff because of how the camera, there's no other way that this was taken except with the phone camera. Okay, simple as that. And so the question then becomes, how is it that Con Fernandez, whoever Con is, was able to take this photo, talking about they feel real blessed. They're going to get a driver's license now because they passed this driver's test. The rules are supposed to be the rules. So we reached out to DVDL. The only thing that they would say at this time is that there is the matters under disciplinary review, and they're going to provide an update once that process is completed. They also confirmed that no phones or electronic devices are allowed in the examination room. This is an automatic bar from the examination. This is told to all driving students before the test commence, and this is also the written policy of the department. They did go on to say that there's a presumption of innocence in any disciplinary proceeding, and that there are cameras which afford a thorough investigation. So there will be cameras that they can review. Now, I don't know who Con Fernandez is, but I don't necessarily know that Con, cheated. I think what likely happened is after the exam, Con then went and took a picture of his or her results, because I don't know if Con Fernandez is a man or a woman. Based on that name, unfortunately, I can't say. So that's the situation there. Now, when they say it's under disciplinary review, I get the feeling that it's the DVDL staff that will be subjected to, action, and not Con Fernandez, whoever that person is. So it says here that Con Fernandez, according to Facebook, is a bar stewardess. I don't know where that person works, but they say they work in a bar. There you go. And it's a female from the Philippines. Okay, Con. Well, that wasn't necessarily the smartest thing in the world to do. I think if they have a no camera policy, you don't take your camera and you don't take pictures afterwards. No bueno. All right, here's Kevin Watler with our news for the day.
Hello, I'm Kevin Watler, and this is your CMR Daily Buzz. Shortly after 4:30 Friday morning, officers responded to a report of shots fired at an address on Eastern Avenue near the intersection of Godfrey Nixon Way. When officers arrived, a component of the firearm was recovered and is being forensically processed. Anyone with information on who was in the area between 4 and 4:40 on Friday morning is asked to contact the police. You could pass anonymous tips via the confidential tip line at 949-7777. The Royal Cayman Islands Police Service Financial Crime Investigation Unit is investigating reports of persons attempting to unlawfully obtain funds by authorizing fraudulent transactions by email. This is done by impersonating or gaining access to an email account of a person with the authority to authorize such transactions. In order to avoid falling victim to these schemes, it's advised to do any confirmation of transactions by telephone, in person, or by some means other than email. The Public Transport Board has not granted approval to increase the fares charged on public buses and has confirmed that notices which have been placed on public transport were not generated or authorized by the board. Acting swiftly to quell rumors of a fare increase, the Public Transport Board has notified all omnibus drivers and operators that notices advertising unauthorized fare increases must be taken down immediately. The board further stated in its correspondence to the transport operators that non-compliance with this directive will promptly be addressed and could have adverse consequences. Approved bus fares from Georgetown to West Bay, Bordentown, or around Georgetown is $2, from Georgetown to East End or North Side is $3.50, and from Georgetown to Cayman Kai is $8. The Public Transport Board has received a request to increase the bus fares. However, given the impact that a fare increase could potentially have on the community and the cost of living, the request is being carefully considered and no decision has been made at this time. The Central Planning Authority will be appealing a recent court ruling that quashed its approval for the rebuilding of a cabana and seawall on Boggy Sand Road. It appears that a special meeting was called to decide on the matter just 1 week after the Grand Court decision was made public. In the landmark ruling on August 23rd, the Grand Court confirmed that the National Conservation Act provides the National Conservation Council with the ability to direct government bodies in circumstances where actions could have an adverse effect on protected areas or species. However, the CPA does not agree with this ruling. Utilities regulator OFREG is to create a consumer council for the Cayman Islands with the purpose of advising the regulator on issues significantly affecting consumers across the utility sectors. The council will be made up of 6 council members with 1 representative from each of the 5 districts in Grand Cayman and 1 representing Cayman Brac and Little Cayman. The functions of the Consumer Council will include speaking on behalf of consumers by identifying trends in issues affecting consumers, gathering and reviewing statistical information, and reporting on these trends to OFREG CEO Mr. Peter Govt. Additionally, the Council will make proposals and provide advice to OFREG, assisting the regulator to effectively fulfilling its statutory duty to protect consumers in the utility sectors. The Council will also be empowered to assist consumers with progressing complaints filed with OFREG. Republic Bank has announced that Cayman National Bank will acquire, by way of a merger, the banking operations of Republic Bank subject to all regulatory approvals. The securities operation of Republic Bank will also be merged into the operations of Cayman National Securities, with Cayman National Bank and Cayman National Securities the remaining entities following the mergers. They are all indirectly owned by Republic Financial Holdings, and Republic Bank said the merger will rationalize operations in the Cayman Islands and create efficiencies with no loss of service to clients or displacement of staff. All Caymanians at Republic Bank will continue to be employed within the Cayman National Group following completion of the mergers. The Honorable Kenneth Bryan, Minister for Tourism and Transport, was on hand to oversee the donation of thousands of lateral flow test kits to the Department of Children and Family Services. The donation saw just over 90,000 testing kits transferred from the Ministry and the Department of Tourism stock to DCFS. The test will ensure residential customers and DCFS staff have adequate resources for bi-weekly COVID-19 testing. The Department of Education Services said it received notification that students from 3 educational institutions on Cayman Brac have tested positive for the COVID-19 virus. The affected students are from Lehman Scott High, West End Primary, and Creek and Spot Bay Primary Schools. Summer intern Kristen Martin has thanked the Department of Labor and Pensions for providing her with an environment that helped to build her self-confidence. Kristen, who has Asperger's, started working as an administrative support assistant on July 18th. She embarked on this opportunity with a lot of enthusiasm and excitement, and during her time with the department, she was given the opportunity to learn new tasks and develop new skills.
Stormwatch 2022 is brought to you by Home Gas, your propane experts before, during, and after the storm.
The National Hurricane Center is tracking 3 systems. Hurricane Danielle is located about 950 miles west of the Azores, and Tropical Storm Earl is located less than 700 miles south of Bermuda. Another system being monitored is a tropical wave located just off the West African coast, just southeast of the Cabo Verde Islands. It has a medium chance of development over the next couple days, and the chance of development will increase in the next few days. It certainly could be the next named storm by the end of the week. We'll keep our eyes on it for sure. We are in September, which means the tropics will likely get a lot more active, so be storm ready, Cayman. Now for your CMR weather update, it's brought to you by WG Charters. Sunrise at 6:11, partly cloudy skies today. The temperature rises to the high 80s, but when the temperature is at 88 degrees Fahrenheit and the relative humidity is at 69% like the forecast calls for, the temperature will feel around 100 degrees Fahrenheit. Winds east at 5 to 10 miles per hour, then the sun sets at 6:37. At nighttime, the temperature falls to the low 80s. Looking forward, similar weather conditions are expected. Remember, it's summertime, so those hot days, warm nights with scattered showers are very typical for this time of year. CMR weather updates are brought to you by WG Charters. They offer private boat trips for a great price, so we encourage you to support them. Now for some regional and international news. A 34-year-old Jamaican woman living in New York is facing federal charges for a catfishing scheme in which she used multiple online identities to target rich, prominent men for extortion. Sequoia Blackwood is charged with cyber stalking, extortion, and interstate communications with the intent to extort. According to an indictment, Blackwood, who also goes by Koya Blackwood Fuse and Layla Cohen, among other aliases, began the alleged scheme in March of this year. She allegedly targeted an unnamed CEO of a publicly traded company, identified in documents only as Victim 1. Blackwood reportedly used online communications to elicit compromising materials from the victim and then attempted to blackmail him over multiple months. The first ever Afro-Caribbean Trade and Investment Forum opened on Thursday with host Barbados Prime Minister Mia Mottley saying the two regions have business to do and asserting that it was only political will keeping the two regions from establishing direct air links. Mottley said while the existing political cooperation between Africa and the Caribbean is essential, it is not sufficient to reverse the underdevelopment of either region. She insisted that they had not fully tapped into the existing avenues of foreign partnership, including business and tourism. Russia won't immediately resume exports of natural gas to Europe through its Nord Stream 1 pipeline, worsening a shortage that threatens to tip the continent into an energy crisis this winter. On Friday, Russian state energy giant Gazprom said it would not resume flows through its pipeline on Saturday as planned because it had detected an oil leak at a compressor station. The pipeline had been shut off since Wednesday for maintenance. It didn't give a timeline of when the exports might resume. That's it for now on the Daily Buzz. Thank you for joining me. Please stay safe and God bless.
All right, Kevin, thank you very much for those news headlines this Monday morning. We have Miss Brenda says, well, the outsiders run things here. So what do you expect? Come on, is anyone really surprised? Miss Perla says, you're right. That's how they get away with so many criminal acts. Shame. CE Bank says on cruise ship days, they don't follow their bus routes and many are very rude to locals. It has happened many times to me, very rude drivers. So we often hear a lot of complaints about these bus drivers, my dear. And the complaint about them encroaching on the regular taxis and going out of their way to target tourists is also something we hear a lot about. Cameron says a new counsel for OFREG. Cameron has a laugh at that situation. I think OFREG is going to perhaps come on the program and explain to us really what this new council is all about and what they hope to accomplish with it. So we'll find out. Cameron goes on to say, what a way to dilute accountability. Hopefully that's not the case. Ms. Brenda says Bank of China is taking over. Watch out, Cayman, it's here. Cameron also says if OFREG knew it needed an advisory council, why the RAS it wasn't set up from long time? Well, I guess better late than never. So, yes. All right. Good morning, Sharon. Is joining us from Alton, Wiltshire. Is that in the UK somewhere? She says, good afternoon. So good to see you. And good morning to Suzette. All right, so let's change gears a little bit. We have a little bit of unpacking to do with this recent court decision that was handed down on August the 18th from the Honorable Justice Richard Williams in relation to the Christy Thompson Memorial Hospital Holdings Limited, essentially suing the government of the Cayman Islands, interested parties, Astor Caribbean Holdings, and Naranja, basically Health City. I'm not even going to attempt that next word. Naranja Hurudalaya. So what this is all about, folks, is Christy Tomlinson has sued the government, wanting the judge to issue certain declarations as it relates to stamp duty waivers, right? So I'm going to pull up on the screen here so you can follow me. This is a 52-page judgment. It is challenging sometimes to read these judgments and to pull out the most salient portions of it and what portions you really need to try to understand, because every judge has a slightly different style in terms of how they write judgments. And so some people at the end, they will do, the actual decision is very, very clear and concise. This judge has kind of weaved it in to his discussions like throughout. So you've got to kind of pick and choose to understand exactly what it is that he's saying. So let me make some preliminary comments about this situation first and foremost. All hospitals in the Cayman Islands are for-profit hospitals. I don't want anybody to think that you can go to the hospital and get a service for free. That just isn't how it works. Okay? Health City is in it for profit. Oh, and by the way, before I forget, somebody said to me, make sure you tell everybody that Health City is a client. I think it's obvious to everyone, but to be abundantly clear, you guys know Health City. I think they're back actually tomorrow. They come on the program. They advertise with CMR. That's how they come in the program. And they have done this across all spectrums of media, nothing unique and different to CMR. When the other talk show was alive, or the other out of the radio station in the morning, they were there every single week as well. And they make the circuit to all the different radio stations. In order for them to do that, they pay advertising money to have access to your ear and to our audience here on CMR. Crystal clear? They're an advertiser, yes? And that will have absolutely zero bearing on what I'm about to say to you this morning. Okay, so listen, folks, they're all in it for profit. It's a profitable business. And I suppose if a hospital is operated really well, there must be good money in it, because God knows there's enough hospitals all over the world. It's not a charitable organization. It's not a charitable business. And so from my perspective, that also means that it is very competitive. And I've seen the competitive nature of it. They're vying for you to come to their facility versus others. And you may go to one because you like a particular physician. You may go because, they have the latest equipment. You may go because maybe they specialize in something that you need. And some of the others may not offer those services. There's a variety of different reasons why you can choose, pick, and refuse any of the healthcare facilities on the island. Last week, I briefly talked about, when we were talking about the emergency services, how if a hospital isn't being profitable, there are things that will happen and there are things that they may do in terms of business decisions, right? So Christy Tomlinson, it's no secret. Somebody thought it was being shady. I'm like, I'm not being shady when I just tell the truth. I mean, I don't know how the truth can be shady. But We know some years ago that they had shut down their maternity ward because at the time the owner, Dr. Tomlinson, I guess made the decision the maternity ward wasn't making any money. And then when the new owners, and it became Doctors Hospital, took it over, they reopened the maternity ward. So they must think that there's a way to make delivering babies profitable. A lot of people see the HSA, because it's a government operated and government run hospital, as one that does not need to be profitable. Well, no. Because if the HSA isn't profitable, guess who's really losing? All of us, the taxpayers. We're the ones who are going to lose if HSA isn't profitable, because ultimately the government has to bankroll, because it is a government-owned hospital. The government has to bankroll that. And over the years, there have been numerous discussions about Cineco. That's the insurance agency for mostly indigent people and civil servants. They don't contribute to Cineco. The civil service gets 100% insurance coverage. There have been previous ministers of finance who've said that this is not a sustainable position, that we cannot continue to give you free health insurance and free healthcare. And at some point, there will be a price to pay for that. So far, the government has managed to kick that can down the road, and no one has really addressed it. So, we continue to wait to see how long before that rooster comes home. And then it becomes, ooh, yeah. Okay. Cineco really isn't profitable. We need to do X, Y, and Z. They've got a board that is obviously responsible for looking at those things in conjunction with whatever finance staff that they have on board, right? So they charge fees for their services, whether you're going to see a physician, have surgery, test. They've got a phlebotomy lab and all these other services that they do charge for. So the reason why I'm telling you it's a for-profit business is important, because there's also a competitive element to all of this. They're in competition with each other, right? And they've got marketing teams that are trying to get the word out there about why this one is better than that one. This one is grand. You should come to this facility, that facility, blah, blah, blah. That has a bit of a role to play in how we end up at where we are. And the truth also is that, health Doctors Hospital has made the argument that the playing field has to be even. In principle, I don't think any of us have an issue with that, and we all believe that. Now, here's the thing that we need additional information on. Doctors Hospital was built in, I'm trying to remember what year. Help me out now. It was the Chrisley Thompson Memorial Hospital. Help me out with the year that it was actually built here. It's been a minute, okay? And at the time, they were the only private hospital as such, now going into direct competition with government. So they kind of had a little bit, I guess, of a one-up in terms of, people wanted to go to a private facility. They certainly had that option. Health City didn't exist. And there certainly wasn't the new group, which is coming on board, hadn't yet existed. Well, they're not yet there, right? They're still, I guess, in the works. Have they broken ground? I don't even know, to be honest. But at the end of the day, we don't know what concessions were given at the time that Chrisley Tomlinson Memorial Hospital was actually built and constructed. And this is a point that is an important point, right? Because I have reached out to various members of cabinet who would have been, in cabinet at the time. I want to say it was around 2009, but I stand to be corrected, when Chrisley Tomlinson was built. The feedback that I've gotten from members of cabinet is that they did, in fact, requests, right, and ask for some form of concessions, and they were granted. So this is what one of the ministers said to me. He said, he couldn't remember what year either. He said, I don't remember what year, but I know at one point Dr. Steve wrote to me about concessions, and I granted it through cabinet, of course. How much it was, I don't know. I'm going to send you something, and then they submitted a letter and stuff as well. So this is actually Mr. McKeeva Bush. He does have a letter here, which we're going to have a look at in just a second, because there's been a lot of letters going back and forth and all over the place. So at the time, it was the UDP government. This is when Chrisley Tomlinson was built. McKeeva Bush was premier. Juliana O'Connor Connolly was deputy premier. Mark Scotland was minister of health. Rolson was education. Mike Adams was community development. And that was pretty much the cabinet. We have reached out to the civil service to try to ascertain and get the details of that, whatever the concessions were. The general feeling from people's memory, and again, we obviously weren't there, so we can't speak to it, but the general feeling is that at the end of the day, Dr. Tomlinson requested and received the concessions that he requested. There didn't seem to be any point of contention. Nobody was like, no, we're not going to give you what you wanted. Now, this is important because at some point you have to recognize that this comes down to actual negotiating skills, right? So if Dr. Tomlinson approaches the government of the day and say, okay, I want $2 million in concessions, I want XYZ, and that's it. And he makes his case. And he gets that. They don't make a, okay, here you go. And then 10, 15 years later, Health City or Astor Group, whoever the next group is that's coming around, they come and they say, you know what? We're going to be investing this amount in your country. We're going to do a facility. We're going to do a school. We're going to do way more than Chrisley Tomlinson planned to do. We're going to have 200-bed facility. We're going to expand eventually to 2,000 beds. We're going to do all this long-term development. We're going to have a school. We're going to invest in your people, invest significantly in your country. And these are some of the concessions that we want. This is a business negotiation, folks. And it is incumbent on the government to ensure and make sure that, you know, whatever concessions they do grant are fair and reasonable in the circumstances. And it also reflects on the negotiation skills, I think, of the other party who has the ability to, you know, negotiate well or not. Caller, good morning and welcome to the program.
Good morning. Dr. Rado here from Doctor's Hospital.
Hi, Dr. Rado.
How are you doing?
Good, thanks. How are you?
Wonderful. I just wanted to make myself available to you to give you some more background information about the judicial review.
Well, we're actually going to go through it if you allow us to.
Absolutely, but I just wanted to add to where you are right now, that there is, we do not have a problem with the government giving tax abatements for new businesses to come in. That was not the reason why we complained through the judicial review. The reason why we did this is because the government gave away decades-long millions and hundreds of $millions worth of abatements that we felt was not fair. We did not, we are investing, as you know, we are investing into new technology all of the time. We have a new MRI, we have the best CT you can buy for money on the one hand, but the government did not give us any tax abatements when we brought this in, and we're talking about millions of dollars here on our side.
Do you accept, Dr. Otto, let me just pause you there for a second. Do you accept that at the time that Chrisley Tomlinson Hospital was built, which you were not, to the best of my knowledge, on island or involved with the facility, do you accept that at that time negotiations would have been made and concessions would have been granted potentially to Dr. Tomlinson that, number one, you know nothing about, so you don't know what was granted, and had his negotiation skills been better, maybe you could still be benefiting today from those abatements of duty concessions?
I follow your point, and I think what you say makes sense. But there is a difference between wanting something to happen and giving away the whole boat in one go for the next couple of years. Mm-hmm. And this is what happened here. I don't know how much Dr. Tomlinson got at the time. Mm-hmm. I agree with you that he should have gotten something, and I hope he did get something.
Yes.
I can tell you, when we bought the hospital, we were asking for a tax abatement on the stamp duty of buying the hospital, which was not granted. And we did get some little things here and there, but overall we did not get any relevant tax abatements over our time since the group of doctors bought it from Dr. Tomlinson.
So if we're talking
it's not that we didn't ask.
Yeah, no, I understand. And let me just ask a question here, because again, I mean, obviously I can't speak for the government team and how their negotiations played out, but there is the logical question of how much of an investment that is being made by a facility. So when you guys bought the hospital, I don't know what the financial position was of Christy Tolman's hospital, but I don't think it's any secret that the hospital has run into financial issues in the past. And at one point, it was actually on the verge of bankruptcy. And Dr. Tomlinson was seeking legal advice from the best legal minds in Ireland about how to try to turn this hospital around. Now, when you purchased it, it might have been in a better financial position. Like I said, I do not know, but I feel confident in saying that it was no hidden secret, that there were financial issues. And I think, to the best of my recollection, that Dr. Tomlinson may have actually made a statement that he might have to shut the hospital down because it wasn't doing well financially. Now, having said that, right, we have a list here of a lot of things that have transpired. Let's just use Health City as an example. And to be clear, Health City was not a party to this lawsuit. They're what's called, they're listed as an interest. When I say not a party, they were not who was being sued in any way, but they are listed as an interested party, as well as Astor Caribbean Holdings Limited, right? Because both of them have been the recipients of the stamp duty, and what you say really is where the issue lies, looking specifically at their contracts. So when Health City says that, you know, they've invested $79 million in economic impact in the first 5 years, and then someone puts that to you because they say that's outside of the $250 million of direct investment into the physical plant that they've already done. When people start to throw out these numbers, 24 million saved in the first 5 years in air ambulance fees, direct savings to the people of the Cayman Islands and the Cayman Islands government. I do have a long list here of all the contributions and key statistics, right? This might have been some of the stuff that Cabinet was thinking, right? So Health City is going to give the Cayman Islands government hospital a 30% discount for every single patient that we refer to them, as opposed to having to send that patient overseas to the tune of hundreds of thousands of dollars for everything from knee surgery. And I can tell you independently, I've actually been to what's the surgeon called again? Dr. Pecos is one. What's the specialty? But anyway,
orthopedic surgeon.
Yes, thank you. It was escaping me. So I've been to an orthopedic surgeon at I want to say it was Baptist, but I can't remember. Anyway, he's a specialist in the Miami, Fort Lauderdale area. And I was having a conversation with him. It wasn't for myself. I was accompanying someone. He said, you know, oh, you guys are from the Cayman Islands. We used to get patients from the Cayman Islands all the time. But since Health City opened up, we hardly see anyone anymore. And that's a direct savings to the Cayman Islands government, the HSA, and the people of the Cayman Islands to have facilities here that before Health City came on board, there were certain procedures and certain operations that couldn't have taken place. And to do it cheaper, to give government hospital a 30% discount. So all of these things, government is saying, listen, this is why we have given, you know, these things are business negotiations, you give and take. We've given them certain concessions. We've given them duty waivers and the works, even in the long term, because the impact on the community, saving of lives, the financial impact, the economic impact, the building of, you know, the school, the air ambulance fees that we've saved, all of this stuff adds up in a real and meaningful way. So if they have,
okay, can I add to that? Let's talk about economics for a moment. Yeah. So Doctors Hospital is a for-profit organization. It's a Caymanian company, and we need to make money to reinvest into the hospital and to pay everybody. That is what we are doing. Health City is the same. It's a private company. The governmental hospital has a different thing to fulfill. The government hospital needs to be very broad in what they do, because they need to go into areas that don't necessarily make money, like mental health, which is very important, but is not paid well. Yeah. So the government the government hospital, George John Hospital, has a different reason to exist and has a reason why they don't necessarily need to be a for-profit hospital, because they offer a service that we need to have in our society that needs to be there. There is no reason why one private hospital should get all the tax abatements, especially when what they're doing is, like you argue, or they argue, that there's a lot of money that doesn't need to be spent anymore because we have these possibilities now here. So the main thing that Health City brought was cardiac services. And I can tell you from knowledge and being involved in it, that there was a cath lab on island before Ivan hit. I saw it, and it was dilapidated after Ivan because it had water damage and we couldn't use it. But there would have been a cardiac cath lab during Ivan if Ivan wouldn't have hit. So there is a way to grow your medical services in a natural way. Then there were other guys. There was a cardiac group coming out of St. Luke's that wanted to come down here and build a cath lab together with Dr. Tomlinson, and they were ready to pull the trigger. And that is when the government signed the contract with Health City, and because of that, they didn't come. When you look at this, when people think because it's a for-profit organization, we live in a normal world of other for-profit organizations. Let's say you want to sell cars. The more competition you have, the better it is, and the price will go down. That is not the case in medicine and in healthcare. In healthcare, we get paid a fixed price for what we do. If you come and you get a CT, the CT is, let's say, $1,000. It doesn't matter if I use a 20-year-old CT or if I use the latest state-of-the-art technology. I will get paid $1,000. If I come and build another hospital on this island, like Health City now builds another hospital in Cayman Bay, and they say they bring a new technology here that we need, and that is radiation therapy. We don't have that on island right now. Doctors Hospital is bringing it to the island as well. I can tell you we will bring a better technology than Health City is bringing.
Dr.
One second. Let me just finish this thought.
Let me just pause you, because what you don't recognize perhaps that you're doing, and I want to caution you, because there are people who are listening to this who are going to see what you're doing is extremely petty, because now this is a tit for tat. Oh, Health City is bringing this technology. Well, we're bringing it too. This isn't an opportunity for you to...
Let me finish the thought. Let me finish the thought, because you will see where I'm going.
Right.
I'm not going on the technology.
Okay,
I'm going on the money.
Let's get you to wrap up the thought.
So they say their new building cost $100 million. I can tell you, we built a better machine and a better service for $10 million. Why does that matter to you? Because you pay for every dollar that we invest. You pay through your health insurance fees. If Aster DM comes and builds another $350 million hospital, and you have another $500 million of investment, where do we think this money comes from? All of us pay for it through our health insurance fees. And this is where, because everybody gets paid the same thing. If you build another machine and you get, Health City is going to bring to Cayman Bay another PET-CT scanner. We already have a PET-CT that Baptist is running here. They bring another MRI. We already have 4 MRIs on the island running. Each of these cost a lot of money. We're talking about tens of millions of dollars of investment, and you say, oh, investment is good. In this case, in a marketplace like medicine, where everybody gets the same amount of money. Health City is not cheaper than we are. They charge the same amount. Why? Because
I don't know that that's the point, but okay. Can I get you to wrap up?
Everybody gets paid. I just want to finish my thought. So the long story short is, the more it's the idea of more investment into healthcare into the island is a good thing, is flawed by, if there is overinvestment, we all have to pay and shoulder the cost of, let's say, bad investment. And if you have the same machine 5 times, and it has to be paid off 5 times, and you go through the door, and you will get that machine test because it needs to be paid off. And this is what's happening. And this is why, for example, when Britcay, if you remember, was trying to stop everything but cardiac care to go to Health City, everybody was up in arms and said, oh, we want to have freedom of choice of where we go. But that cost money. And Britcay said, well, in that case, this will be more expensive. And since they said that, I pay more than triple the price on health insurance for my family than I used to do before they opened up. And you cannot shy away from that fact.
Okay, my dear. That's it.
That's it. Thank you very
much. Sometimes you cannot save people from themselves. Olive says, sir, shut your bad mind mouth in Spanish, bad mind in English, and bad mind. The point that I was trying to make to Dr. Rada is he's not going to do himself any favors here this morning by making these comments, because people get the sense that this is a tit for tat. This is all about Health City doing something, but we can do it better, or why spend money on that? All equipment is the same. Listen, first of all, I don't know about this thing about all equipment being the same. There's new procedures, new medical equipment that comes out. Today's MRIs, there's no way that they could be the same as an MRI from 5 or 10 years ago. That doesn't even make any logical sense. The technology has evolved. And so if you have an institution that's willing to invest in the latest and the greatest, there's a lot to be said for that. But again, that's not even really where this conversation was going. But I think that unfortunately, what happens when you have the conversation, this is exactly what I'm afraid of. It's this tit for tat. It's like we had another physician send us an email saying, oh, Health City, because again, Health City is the one that they all want to go after, which makes you wonder, like, wow, what is it about Health City? I mean, the other physicians get very much in their feelings about what Health City is doing and their model of doing things, okay? And so someone said, oh, well, they're in breach of the memorandum of understanding with them and government. And I'm like, okay, let's have some examples of what you mean by that. And they provide examples. And I go back to them and I said, listen to me. As someone who has been subjected to lawsuits in the past, let's just say that I'm a little bit more careful when people bring me a bill of goods and sells it to me and says, here you go, this is factual and you need to put this out there in the public sphere. That's why I tell y'all, you come put it in the public sphere yourself. You subject yourself to a friggin' lawsuit, and then I will sit back and watch all the fireworks happen. What is interesting is that in some of the information that they have sent, they have been completely incorrect. So now in my mind, this is like, what is it? What is really going on here? Is this some sort of a smear campaign? Honestly, here's an example. They have claimed that the apartments next to Health City, they built these apartments and, they're having their people stay there, and that's against the memorandum of understanding, blah, blah, blah. The real story is Health City doesn't own those apartments. They don't own the land. They didn't build it. That's another Caymanian who has built those apartments next to Health City, which Health City utilizes. And they're putting money in the pockets of a Caymanian rental property owner. But yet there are physicians out there who are running around talking about the fact that that's owned by Health City and that runs afoul of the memorandum of understanding. If you can't get something as basic as that correct, and believe me when I tell you, it would have been really easy to go to land registry and verify who owned that property. If you cannot get that correct and you're sending me an email wanting me to put Health City in blast, claiming that Health City is in contravention of their memorandum of understanding with government, they're not doing this and they're not doing that, it does beyond give me pause and make me go, hold on a second. What's really going on here? It's not a good look. Now, Health City has issued a statement. And again, I'm not really trying to get into the back and forth because there's a lot of it. They have said that as a joint international commission accredited facility, Health City's position as a leader in healthcare delivery and innovation has attracted coverage from internationally respected media outlets from Harvard Business Review, USA Today, and PBS, amongst others. They said that the Harvard Business School has used Health City as a case study, including in its curriculum, focusing on entrepreneurial solutions to intractable social and economic problems. They have talked about, the investment that they've made into the country. So they say that they've only availed themselves of $15 million in concessions since inception. They've had a reduction of 15% on work permit fees and paid approximately $1 million in work permit fees per year. They say that they've had a $79 million economic impact in the first 5 years. That does not include the $250 million direct investment into the physical structure. And they've only received $5 million in concessions at this time in terms of that. Medical tourism from the US, Canada, and so on. Now, to be fair, Health City built their facility on this concept of medical tourism being what was going to be the gravy train. And I think we can all accept, and I was reading an article that was in CNS some time ago, where Health City themselves have accepted that that model quite hasn't panned out the way in which they thought that it would. So they have introduced a number of new services. Direct savings, $24 million saved in the first 5 years in air ambulance fees. Because before, if you were having that heart attack and they could stabilize you enough to get you off this island, this isn't about a cath lab. This is about having the expert knowledge and other equipment on hand for them to be able to perform all sorts of surgical procedures. There's no doubt that people were being sent overseas. So Dr. Rado's point, he's like, oh, the cath lab was here. It was coming, Hurricane Ivan, whatever. People were still being sent overseas at an astronomical rate. I'm telling you, I'm sitting in the orthopedic surgeon's office with my sister and her bad knee that, by the way, she had done here at another facility and they had to repeat it. So she had to go overseas, and not saying that it was the facility's fault because some surgeries just fail. And he said to me, the first thing first takeaway is, yeah, y'all need a lot of knee surgery because you're overweight, you're fat, you're obese, and that takes a toll on the joints. And he said, man, we were doing a lot of business on the Cayman Islands. Your health services authority was always sending people to us. And since Health City opened up, we hardly see anybody. There's only the 1-2 locations where someone is insistent on coming to us. And I was like, really? The physician was like, yeah, our gravy train has dried up. I'm like, interesting. 29,000 in educational opportunities. Some of the facilities at HSA, at Health HSA, the names are too similar, at Health City, HC, completely 100% Caymanian employment. Sometimes we can't even say that about our own government facility because, they have to import workers. They poach workers from each other. The other day I went to a consult. Gianna's got to have a little minor surgery done. And who's the surgeon? A former physician at Health City. Great surgeon, by the way. I mean, I've heard really positive things about him. So they're bringing in talent that some of these other facilities, in truth, will be in a position to benefit from. It's a lot of back and forth, and I want to focus on what the lawsuit actually says. So let us do that, because I think in terms of the business case and the arguments that you could be made with that, we could go on forever. Let's do a few takeaways here from the lawsuit. It is 52 pages, folks. You're free to read it for yourself. If you want to have a read of it, by all means, message me and I'll give you a copy of it, and you can sit down with a good crumpet and some tea and enjoy going through it. So the judge goes through the background. There was actually 2 separate judicial review cases that at some point they amalgamated, because the first one became a non-issue after an affidavit was provided, and the government, clarified this whole institutional, institutional facilities versus non-institutional. And we've done interviews on this from years ago, saying that there were concerns in the medical profession about how physicians were coming in through the institutionalized method, which is what Health City has a license under, versus the non-institutionalized. There's a bit of back and forth. Now there seems to have been some clarity and some criteria put in place. So good. This is where legal challenges are important. And this is where Doctors Hospital, pushing for that and suing the government has forced the government's hand to put the criteria in place. And now we have an affidavit from Miss, what is her name? This government person over at the Medical and Dental Council who has laid out what the criteria are and specifies exactly that, essentially they're all on the same footing. And that affidavit would have been provided to the court. So the evidence is that the respondent being government, to Ms. Brenda's question, they're not a party to the lawsuit in the sense that they are being sued. They're what's called an interested party. So they are listed as an interested party because, the outcome potentially affects them, right? So at point 9, it says there's evidence that the respondent has on a number of occasions granted financial waivers to the applicant, which is Doctors Hospital. So they didn't go into any details of what those waivers are. So again, we're trying to get some information on what some of those waivers are. You heard Dr. Yado said it wasn't very much. We would like the specifics and exactly what was granted. Point number 10 says there's no dispute that public bodies can enter into contracts which include the grant of waivers as long as it is compatible with the proper exercise of their statutory duty. Now, this whole thing about waivers, folks, comes up a lot because the financial and cabinet and the financial minister has this discretionary, it's a very wide-ranging discretionary power to give duty waivers on everything from stamp duty to customs duties to, even work permit duties. I mean, they can give a lot of duty waivers. Sometimes a justification, there's a business case justification. We're encouraging, inward or external investors, developers, et cetera, et cetera. So it says here, the applicant's challenge is to the granting of tax waivers based on an error of law, namely that the respondent acting in a manner that indicates that it is continuing to treat itself as being bound to grant waivers under the contract. It is contended that the respondent is government, the applicant is Doctors Hospital, commits an error of law each time Health City imports medical supplies and the respondent waives the customs duty on these supplies. So the applicant is seeking a finding from the court that the contractual clauses cannot lawfully fetter the respondent's discretion. Well, the judge didn't agree with that. So, there was a lot of legal points that Doctors Hospital's attorneys would have been making on their behalf that the judge ultimately says that he doesn't agree with, and he's not going to make that declaration. So continue reading. And like I said, there's quite a bit packed into here. He says, in relation to the second declaration sought, the applicant highlights that there's no established criteria which revenue waivers applications are assessed for approval, and that there is an obligation for the respondent to do so. The respondent, on the other hand, contends that there is no duty on the government and public bodies at common law to draft and have in place a policy to structure discretionary powers, and or that the absence of a published criteria is not lawful. He goes on to talk about the background of the applications, how it became one. These are the declarations that they were seeking, these 3 things, right? The respondent is, this was the first lawsuit. So this is 150 of 2022. This has pretty much been resolved. So that's not what's really at contention in this specific lawsuit, right? So let's go ahead and move past that. He does say, again, that the thing that came out of this, which Dr. Rado himself has pointed out, that there was great merit in the legislature considering whether there's a need to clarify or amend the wording in Regulation 5 and 6 and Regulation 5A HPR to remove any potential uncertainty in this important area of patient safety. So this is in relation to the whole institutional registration. So he doesn't spend very much time on that. I think there's a typo here in the judgment. So if you work for the court's office, please ask them to correct point 23. That should be September 2021. I'm pretty sure of that. So I've made a little note. Let me see if Chuck will allow me to go into overtime. If normally there's nothing like another host on, we can go into a little bit of overtime on the radio. Because like I said, you could spend days talking about this lawsuit for sure. So fix a little typo, court's office at point 23. It talked about, the directions hearing and basically taking these two judicial review proceedings and consolidating them into one. So this hearing took part in April, and he received oral submissions from the parties. I think there was some point when they allowed them to go back and make additional submissions as well. So the factual background, again, referring to the 2010 contract with the government and NHPL, which is the parent company for Health City, it says that the then premier, which would have been Mr. McKeever, the Honorable McKeever Bush at the time, and the Honorable Mark Scotland, on behalf of the respondent, so that's government, and Dr. Devi Shetty, on behalf of NHPL, executed this contract concerning the provision of new state-of-the-art care facilities to cater for medical tourists and residents of the Cayman Islands. So it goes into a little bit of details about, what they were, on the one hand, going to provide, and this was all in the contract: creation of a 200-bed hospital, state-of-the-art healthcare facility in areas of tertiary care that were not available at the time in the Cayman Islands. Second phase was the creation of an educational institution, training academy, and dental nursing and medical college. At the end of the 3 phases, there'd be further expansion of the hospital to up to what they said would be 2,000 beds, with the facility being spread over 500 acres of land. So these were the plans. Assisted living homes for seniors, so on and so forth. So in exchange for all of this, and again, this is a matter of negotiations. So they went in and said, okay, government, we're going to deliver in all of these things. And the government agreed. It says here that there was an undertaking for a project it estimates will take over 10 years to execute at a cost of over $2 billion. Okay. Government said, right, we're going to give you a 20% discount on all surgical operations at the hospital. No, my apologies. Health City is giving preference to employing or engaging suitably qualified Caymanians. A discount to government of 20% on all surgical operations at the hospital to every Caymanian patient referred from the government hospital for tertiary or specialty care. And that, again, will continue for as long as the company is in receipt of any revenue exemptions or concessions. So that's the trade-off. You get concessions, we're going to give you a 20% discount. They talked about some of the conditions precedent. We won't really go into it. It doesn't say much about that, really. And it says, therefore, the applicant contends that if the court was to find that the government's undertakings to waive taxes was unlawful, then the undertakings given by the respondent in the contract would be of no legal effect, and adds that there's no question of the whole contract being ultra virus. So the court did not find that that was the position. So it hasn't found that it was ultra virus, and it certainly did not find that it was unlawful. That doesn't mean that the judge did not have some concerns about the length of the concessions that were granted. So at number 32, he talks about, sorry, we're off radio already, but the rest of you can continue listening. At point 32, he talks about another clause in the contract that the company is exempted from liability to pay any customs duty or similar duty on the first $800 million in value of all medical equipment and medical supplies brought to Grand Cayman for use in the operation. Now, Health City has said that, they have only availed themselves of $15 million in concessions since the inception. And they have had a reduction of 15% on work permit fees. And I can tell you work permit fees for physicians it's a lot of money. But of course, availing themselves of $15 million is the current position. But in this contract, it says that they could be getting for the first 800 million that comes in. And they go on to say that there's no expiration date in relation to the 100% duty exemptions provided in this undertaking. So, of course, the position of Doctors Hospital is that this is too much. Now, having said that, it's interesting because to Dr. Rada's point, which he just mentioned, medical equipment is very expensive. I don't know how much pieces of equipment we're talking about to even get to $800 million, but I can tell you one piece of equipment could, depending on what the equipment is, easily cost you $1 million or more dollars. The equipment isn't cheap. And despite that, they still only avail themselves of $50 million in concessions. Do they take every single concession that's available to them? I don't even know that to be the case, to be honest. So the judge says, again, these concessions will last for many years, at least 30 years, after the $800 million exemption point is reached, and may result in many millions of dollars of waivers and lost revenue for future administrations. So he talks about clause 2.10C of the contract. From liability to pay any duty or other charges whatsoever in relation to life-saving medical equipment, that's the same thing, for at least 50 years from the commencement of construction. And he says this is a further very lengthy concession. So for whatever reason, the negotiators at the time, and again, this comes down to negotiating ability on both sides, were given rather lengthy concessions. And the question is, why that length of time? So he looks at a few more clauses of the contract, clause 13, and it goes on in great detail. Then he talks about the fact that the previous government, being the progressive government, also entered into a contract with the other interested party, which is ACHL, Astor Group. And likewise, they executed a 2020 contract with them. Same thing, provision of healthcare services over a full range of specialties, primarily to medical tourists. It's almost like the Astor Group is trying to copy exactly what Health City attempted to do, but they have said that there is, despite Health City at one point saying, all right, well, in terms of medical tourism, it isn't there yet. Astor has come along and said, we know how to do it. We'll get it right. Time will certainly tell if that is the case or not. So the judge talks about this contract now with government. And again, some concerns about the longevity. Now, the main question is, does a contract that is entered into by one government that spans over multiple governments, because obviously over a 50-year period of time, there will be multiple people elected, different cabinets formed and whatever, does that type of a contract bind future members of government? And the conclusion that it comes to is that it doesn't. The future, even this current government, if they wanted to, could go about reviewing these contracts. And so there's a point here when he says, let me just see if I can find this. I try to highlight some really relevant points here. Let me just see. It's a lot of reading, folks, trust me. And it's not necessarily the easiest thing in the world to read. So he says at number 55, I find that the questions about the possible fettering, so that's where you're binding a previous government. So fettering of the government's statutory powers to refuse to grant waivers to the interested parties to be not a purely academic one, and is one of general importance to the public because it relates to the potential consequences of financial entrenchment on future elected governments. It's a genuine concern, and the wider implications may affect the lives of residents who, on the one hand, wish the government to promote the provision of healthcare systems and tourism in the Cayman Islands, and who, on the other hand, benefit from the public services funded by revenue deprived from all potential taxation resources that government could be providing. So he talks about the importance of that. Then he looks at a couple cases. He says that this is not a situation where the applicant is a meddlesome body. This is a legitimate question. Right? So he talks about that, looks at a few cases. Great. Goes on to say, there's a question here if they could even sort of bring this suit. That's why he went into that. That yes, they have a right. Point 63, legislation revenue collection. So it talks about how revenues derive from customs duty and stamp duty. And most importantly, he looks at this Auditor General's report that in September of 2015 said some really important things about the collection of government revenue that is used to deliver services to the public, and that there's an expectation that government will have in place the management framework needed to ensure that it collects and manages revenue efficiently and effectively in accordance with established legislation and regulations. That report, that auditor's report, did make some very strong points that there needed to be a better framework or guideline in place to determine when concessions are given and sort of under what circumstances, so that people have an idea of what the parameters are. That hasn't been done. And of course, to this day, it hasn't been done, and the judge is saying that it should be. You know, the Auditor General's office says they're busy. It takes a lot of time to do it. The chief officer hasn't done it because of only God knows what excuse. So it is something that has continued to be put on the back burner, that it appears, even from this most recent lawsuit, needs to be prioritized. So it says the parties agree the government may use the grant of duty waivers and concessions as a means to encourage economic development and investment, referring back to the Auditor General's report in 2015. Right? They talked about this African Studies Center. Point 74, one should recognize that the necessity for the government and the methods used to encourage investment in the Cayman Islands may be different to that than in larger and more established jurisdictions such as the UK and Nigeria. The Cayman Islands government may have to judge based on the public interest and having regard to local circumstances whether economic stimulus in a particular sector is more important than raising revenue needed to fund public services. And the argument, of course, is that what they lose in the raising of potential revenue, they gain in savings. So, you know, that's a legitimate, if that's what's happening, that's certainly a legitimate benefit. So it says that, you know, it is now necessary to review the legislation which enables the reduction or the removal of these prescribed fees and duties and section 52 of the Customs Act. And then he goes into some detail as it relates to that. So the applicant, which was Doctors Hospital, contends that section 20 of the stamp duty law provides that duties only payable upon the execution of the relevant instrument. It is argued by the applicant that section 26 does not give a general waiver to a particular person or business or to a general area of business. And then it talks about, you know, how they try to support that. The judge did not find in their favor with this legal argument. In fact, he says, on this issue, I prefer the respondent's submission. That's a nice way of saying that you got it wrong. And he says, I prefer the respondent's submission that the words at any time means that you can only waive at the moment that the duty becomes payable. So the arguments that were put forward by Doctors Hospital, you know, the wording of those particular sections in the act from time to time, etc., that they contended that it requires the commissioner at each execution to form his own view about the grant, and the judge said, no, I don't agree with that position. Then he goes on to look at the work permit fees, because they were arguing about the duty that was, or the fees that were waived in relation to that as well. The judge says it's clear from the above provisions that the respondent is entitled to grant waivers for customs duty and stamp duty. Again, referring to that report. He then goes to talk about the first and third declarations sought in the notion of motion, because remember, again, there were three things that they were seeking. He summarizes this by saying that the core challenge by the applicant is not about whether the respondent can make a commitment in a contract for a reasonable period of time, but it is a challenge to the commitments given in particular clauses in the 2010 contract and in the 2020 contract, and its view that the government continues to act in a manner that shows that it views its statutory powers to refuse to grant waivers of customs duty and stamp duty as being feathered. He says it states that the court should make a finding that the contractual clauses cannot lawfully fetter the respondent's discretion. Right? He says the concerns expressed by the applicant are echoed in this Auditor General's report back in June of 2015. Talks about what those concerns are. He goes into great detail about this report. One of the main things that said here is the Auditor General went on to find that there were serious deviations from the process in place to protect the people of the Cayman Islands from possible corruption by public officials. And the applicant submits that the government and its successors are not bound to waive customs duty for the interested parties or the intended periods of time set out in the contract, and that it is also not bound to waive stamp duties of the first interested party in perpetuity. And then they look at several court cases in relation to that as well. So this is a quote from Lord Birkenhead in this case. Birkdale, well-established principle of law. If a person or public body is entrusted by the legislature with certain powers and duties, expressly or implicitly for public purposes, then those powers or bodies cannot divest themselves of these powers and duties. They cannot enter into any contract or take any action incompatible with the due exercise of their powers or the discharge of their duties. This is well-established law. He goes on to say, however, the principle stated by Lord Birkenhead must be kept within reasonable bounds, and it is not an authority to say that the government, especially if it follows a proper procedure, and to the extent it is empowered to act by the statutory provisions, is never competent to limit its discretion by entering into a contract in which reasonable revenue waivers or concessions are given. Then it talks about the difficulty of too wide of an application of the principle. So the judge is minded not to apply principles in such a wide manner. Folks, the bottom line really is that the judge concludes that, honestly, this is what he says. If the correct process is adopted as commended by the auditor, I think this might have been recommended. I don't think that's the right word, but anyway, judicial staff can check it out. By the Auditor General, Cabinet may approve custom duties and stamp waivers, may be waived by the Commissioner, work permit concessions may be given. It is lawful to do that in order to attract investment for the purpose of development in these islands. This applies in the present and for a reasonable period of time in the future, even though the latter may impinge on the actions of a following administration, especially in the absence of an established policy concerning the grants of waivers and concessions. it is important that one considers the facts and degree of the same. Some of the provisions in the contracts which grant release from the payment of revenue for very long periods of time, and some without any cutoff date, are arguably incompatible with this and future government's ongoing ability to exercise its powers and discharge their revenue collecting duties. Despite the concession made in relation to the content of the first declaration sought, it is evident that the respondent continues to act in a manner consistent with the belief that it is bound by the undertaken and that it should keep on granting the waivers without any review of the prevailing circumstances despite a passage of time. For example, since entering the 2010 contract. Such an approach is an improper fetter of an administration's discretion and use of its powers to bring in revenue, which may be required for it to govern and to meet the public's needs at this time. If there's an intention to enter into a contract that fetters a democratically elected government to change its policies or raise revenue, then that should be properly done following consideration by Parliament. If Parliament deems it appropriate to grant such long-standing concessions, then that would be put into effect in specific legislation. So really, this is the right way to do it, is what the judge is saying, right? Ordinary legislation cannot be made unrepealable, and future governments are free to visit the policy choices of their predecessors. So even when you hear government officials saying to you, oh, well, this has been put in place, there's nothing that we can do about it, you see what it says here? Future governments are free to revisit the policy choices of their predecessors. Now, it might be something that's going to take some time for them to do, especially if they have to repeal legislation or amend or rewrite legislation, but it is within their power to do so. So it says this is partly to ensure that each government can be democratically responsive to its own electorate and is not bound by the preferences of the past, as well as being able to meet the needs of the community as they might be at any time. He goes on now to say that despite these concerns, I am not satisfied. It is, I think that's supposed to come out. I'll put a little note there. That is a typo, I believe. It should read, I am not satisfied. It would be appropriate to make the widely worded declaration as set out in paragraph C of the notice of motion. So he's still saying that despite these concerns, I can't go as far as making the declaration that Doctors Hospital is asking for. Decisions by government to grant tax concessions to the interested parties to stimulate development were not in themselves unlawful. So that's what the notice of motion was asking for, to make that declaration. He said, nope, I'm not going to make that declaration. So if we went back all the way to the beginning, we'd see again what the requested declarations were. The judge goes on to say, for example, the government may enter into a public-private partnership which could bind a future government to the terms of a contract or enter into long-term procurement contracts or development agreements. Similarly, as in the matter before me, a government may offer tax breaks to induce development which can limit future income. It is a matter of degree, having regard to the quantum of concessions and their duration. Therefore, the issue is not about the granting of individual waivers or concessions, especially if they're for a reasonable period of time. The issue arises due to the insular process that Cabinet adopted to reach that decision, as the granting of such concessions over an extended period of time and then acting in a manner that is consistent with the belief that the government and successive administrations are bound with the contracts to continue to give the waivers without future review. An exercise of discretion which is inconsistent with the fettering principle. Although I do not deem it appropriate to grant the wide declaration sought in the notion of motion, I do find that the government acted inappropriately in awarding waivers and concessions for the extremely lengthy periods, and they did without any meaningful reference to Parliament. And that really is the crux of that part of it for sure. Then he goes on to talk about the second declaration as well. I'm trying to remember if I have anything highlighted under this. So yes, number one, point 100. I'm going to let you guys read that for yourselves. Like I said, if you'd like a copy of it, by all means, do reach out to me. But he says the Auditor General very fairly acknowledged that the process to create a concessions policy was not an easy one, but she reiterated the amount of time that had passed since the recommendation was made in the September 2015 report and the importance of the policy. And at some point it talks about, I'm sure it mentioned the chief officer hasn't done anything, like basically the financial secretary, passed the 2020 date, also passed. The financial secretary stated the draft policy would be presented to Legislative Assembly. None of these things have been done. Financial secretary and chief officer, planned implementation by the 31st of December 2016. So this is where the civil service now is failing. They're making promises, financial secretary and chief officer. Oh yeah, this is going to be done by December 31st, 2016. It hasn't been done. Oh yeah, it's going to be done by July 2017. Hasn't been done. Oh yeah, it's going to be finalized in 2019. Hasn't been done. Oh yeah, it's going to be finalized in 2020. This was all under the progressive administration. Now, I'm just telling you all the facts. You take it or leave it. And so the judge is in agreement that this policy should be done. He says at point 103, there's little doubt that the implementation of such a policy is well overdue. The need for such a policy to be put in place is unquestionable. And the principle seems to have been accepted by previous governments, but not actioned. Not previous governments, because that was a progressive government all that time, since 2015. What is at issue is whether it is appropriate for the court to make the declaration that the government is obliged to do so. And the court was not willing to, quite go that step. And it says at point 108, I'm not satisfied that it is appropriate for the court to make a declaration that the respondent is obliged to publish a transparent statement of the criteria. And it will apply when considering concessions. There you go. That's the crux of it, folks. Hopefully I didn't bore you to death, because I do know that these court cases can be very intricate and a little bit boring, to be honest. Sometimes even when I'm reading them, I'm just like, have my tea ready so I don't fall asleep. Thank you so much. El Rey says, I did think that Shetty owned the apartments as part of their model to offer affordable healthcare. You learn something new every day. You sure do. That's why you got to tune into the Cold Hard Truth. Ms. Darlene says, Health City has gained the reputation that they now hold as the best in Cayman. Ms. Brenda saying having buildings and equipment doesn't make it a great institution. I'm not ever going to Health City. Well, no, I mean, it's not really all about the buildings and the equipment, but buildings and equipment does matter. So if you have, aged equipment that isn't able to pick up on certain tumors, et cetera, all these things matter. If you have an aged building that is falling apart and can't provide comfort care, et cetera, then that's problematic as well. But the most important thing for sure is competent staff, because you can have the best building and facilities, and without competent staff, I think that, you're going to have a problem. And, I'm not going to get into it, but we can look at, we could debate that issue forever. So Cameron says, Sandy is on a match. Just give her the crown from now and spare yourselves buck-toe hurt, but worse on Law Road. Anthony says, totally agree, wise one. Putting insight into sayings that are backwards or of no merit here, whilst the sheep are just moving along in the daily routine or mindset. We await your scroll of corrections, patents, and copyrights pending. All right. So actually, Ms. Brenda's saying do they even hire Caymanians? Well, We know for a fact that some of their departments are completely, they have complete 100% Caymanian staff. So, you know, they've got the patient care manager, I think is her name, the young lady from McLaughlin, I forget her first name now, who was on the program talking about how long she has worked there. And, you know, obviously they do bring in a lot of physicians and medical support staff, but do we need to ask them how many Caymanians they have hired? Well, they've said, did they put that in there? Let me see. They said 29,000 in educational opportunities to the Cayman Island students through Healthcare Explorers, which is a HCCI program used to use in science curriculum for certain schools. PR impact of over 100 million in PR and advertising value. Increase in second home ownership due to having safety net of world-class medical facility. They have a whole benchmark of quality, which is something I think I want to get into when they're on the program tomorrow. They have set up a benchmark to compare themselves to other institutions around the world of how good of a job they actually do. Can we talk about that? Because I do think that that's interesting. Significant value in the pandemic with over $30,000 in personal protection kits when the government couldn't source any. Collaborating with the HSA and taking COVID patients. The only other hospital. Making 50 medical professionals available to be flown in if the field hospital was to be activated. Because I understand that despite government putting up the field hospital, the truth of the matter is they didn't have the staffing for it. Thank God we never needed to use it, because then y'all would have been really quite shocked. But the staffing wasn't there. We have someone else says, ask him if he will refund excessive fees charged in the COVID pandemic. Who's him you were speaking to? Was that Dr. Rado? Who were you referring to? I'm assuming that's who it says. Ask him if he will refund excessive fees charged during the COVID pandemic. And excessive fees charged for what? Not really sure. So, there you have it. You want to read this case? Let me know. I'm happy to send you the lawsuit. I think it's incumbent now on this government to push the civil servants to put this policy in place. This concept of this unfettered discretion is something that we addressed a long time ago. In fact, it was our very first lawsuit. We were trying to address it. It was our very first lawsuit with Marco Archer. The article wasn't meant to say that Marco Archer did anything wrong. The question, or the point really, was that the finance minister does have the ability to make decisions about the waiving of duties, even on stamp duty and land, and no one can do anything about it. That is it's a complete unfettered discretionary power on his part. And in that situation, we were trying to demonstrate how on the face of it, there appears to be a lot of questions that were being asked. So this was August of 2019. The article is still very much on the website, where we said, here is a woman, mother-in-law of an independent member of the Legislative Assembly. He's no longer an MP. She's criticizing this administration because she's saying that a 79-year-old cousin of hers who's retired with little income, lives off of a small government stipend of less than $600 a month, wanted her to be added to their property of $110,000. Now, there wasn't transfer of the property or anything like that. They were just adding them in the event that something medically happened to them. they could have the right to make those decisions on their behalf. And in order to be able to do that, they actually needed to be on the property. So their stamp duty request was denied. And again, it wasn't a stamp duty request. I want to be very careful here. It wasn't on the full $110,000 because, like I said, this wasn't a transfer. This was simply going to be adding them on. So whatever the value of that, and there was a refusal to do so. And yet under that same administration, we saw numerous people under the Progressives administration in February 2016. They changed the process relating to how stamp duty concessions were handled. They removed the power to waive stamp duty concessions in some instances from the civil service arm, the financial secretary, and gave it to cabinet. And in some instances, the Minister of Finance alone. That's your progressive administration. Y'all want to talk about them? Go back and read this article. There are things that they have historically done. And yes, no other government has bothered to change it. Well, they just got out. So we don't know if this government will do anything about it. See what we say here? The Auditor General indicated back then that it opens the door for potential corruption. That's that same report. We didn't call the report by any other name, but that's what we were referring to. The Auditor General's report that now is in this lawsuit says it opens the door for potential corruption and political interference. And we go on to say we're not drawing any conclusions with the facts in this situation, but it's important to understand that these are public funds that are being dealt with. And then we laid out an entire chronology of events with supporting documents, right? Of how this lady was refused the stamp duty waiver. And yet by comparison, so her stamp duty amount would have been $8,250. She was told, nope, you can't get that. And then by comparison, we had family members who everybody knows was big time supporters of the Progressives government getting multiple parcels of land waived 100% stamp duty in the Savannah area. And we have those documents in this article as well. I'm going to put the link back here so y'all can go back and read it. Right? So how do you explain that? They got parcels 328, 12, 31, 46, 332C, 30, 31, 58. So they got a letter of abatement of stamp duty for the following block and parcel numbers. All these parcels. And they got a complete abatement. And this one person couldn't. Again, there's no logical standards or understanding of how this this discretion is exercised. That was the whole point of that article. Like I said, I shall give you the link so that you can go and check it out for yourselves. Go back and read it. Yeah. I'm just saying, it is what it is. We had all the emails and everything to support what was being done at that particular time. All right, good people. Anthony says, oh, well, just another day, nothing to see here. And Cameron says nothing's going to be done by 2025 either. Cameron says, ding, 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 ding. There you have it. Go read the article, folks. That's what we got for you today. Tomorrow is another beautiful day in the Cayman Islands, no doubt. More shenanigans going on. On Wednesday, we got a really special show for you, talking about the changing face of media in the Cayman Islands and beyond. So we've got international media guests from Turks and Caicos, from Jamaica, from where else do we bring them in? All over the region that are going to be joining us in the program to discuss media and the changing face of media. This is going to be a 2-part series. So we're doing the first part tomorrow, and hopefully by next week, we're going to be looking at the guys who do the creative elements of marketing and promotions and so on, because some of them who are Caymanians are saying that the government is not giving them, and this would be the civil servants, don't understand what it is that they do, and they're not giving them a fair shake on these things as well. Yeah. All right, folks, there you have it. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Cameron and everybody else, you have a fantabulous day. We will catch you tomorrow morning for more open and frank discussions on the issues that matter.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of The Cold Hard Truth on Bobo 89.1 FM. Cayman's #1 talk show is live weekdays from 7:30 a.m. Never miss an episode again. Watch anytime on CMR's Facebook and YouTube channels for the latest show episodes. Don't forget to follow us online on our social media channels and visit CaymanMarlRoad.com for all the latest news and community happenings.